Grab a seat, pillow, couch, whatever makes you comfortable. Let's talk through it. Let's work through it. Let's discuss it. Have a session.
Don't cry
Dry your
because
eye.
it's over. Smile
Yes, that's right.
because it happened.
That's right. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. 913-3810810. Phone lines open. First couple of hours. Field Yates joins us coming up at noon. We will talk some NFL football with him. Talk a lot of NFL football today as the Chiefs, day after the morning, MORN and MOURN from last night's loss, destruction, whooping, offensive performance that was offensive. A lot of ways to get into last night's game, and there are a few angles and ways we can talk about this, and there are certainly a few things that we can get into, because I think there, from a holistic standpoint, looking at it all encompassing, there is the macro view of what we've witnessed and enjoyed and should be appreciative to have experienced and been alive to experience. There is specifically what happened last night in the game, and then, of course, what happens now moving forward. So there are a lot of ways to look at what we're talking about with this Chiefs team and a Super Bowl loss. Now, 3-2 in the Super Bowl is this Kansas City Chiefs team. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, 4-2 overall as a franchise in Super Bowls. And those two Super Bowl losses were not necessarily close. They were tough offensive performances. There was pressure all over the place in that Buccaneers game. There was pressure all over the place last night with the Eagles out there. And we'll get into why that was. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes, who took a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. I don't think he's necessarily wrong in putting a lot of the responsibility on his shoulders. Andy Reid, putting responsibility on his shoulders. I don't think he's wrong in putting responsibility on his shoulders as well. So we'll get into some of those things. But as it relates to what we – go ahead.
The offensive line was going to put some responsibility on their shoulders, but the defense was already around them.
Yes,
They already
had the defensive line on the shoulders. They were actually climbing over them. Their shoulders were turned the other way. You're right. They were not facing parallel to the line of scrimmage. They were perpendicular as they were turning around to go and chase after somebody, or they were blocking well and Mahomes was running into it. So there's a number of ways to sort of get into it.
It was a combo. It was a trifecta.
What happened last night. Yes, it was a trifecta of suck is what it was. But as we look at what the disappointment was, the perspective that might be there from the disappointment that was last night is the devastation of not winning 3 straight Super Bowls. I mean, I had to think about that when I woke up, obviously, because, going to bed, sucks. Not a great feeling. It's the 4th time since Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs that Chiefs fans have gone to bed with 4-3 in Super Bowls. Thank you, sir. Because they did lose Super Bowl one. That doesn't count, though. Do we really count that? That was the first one ever. We were all getting used to it, right? I think it takes at least 3 Super Bowls to really get used to the Super Bowl and what it is. So really, starting from Super Bowl 4, I feel like
is the first
4
one.
is like the first one when you kind of get a feel of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what it is. So they're really 4-2, and really 2020 was a COVID year, and they were playing in Tampa. So do we really count? I kind of feel like they're 4-1.
I mean, Harry Potter really found it with 4. What?
Yes.
No, with the first 3, no one cares about.
And last night they weren't playing on ice and guys slipping around. So does that even count anyway? So I feel like they're 4-0. And so, anyway, so the devastation of not doing something that literally has never been done before in the history of the game. That was what was on the line, was history. We are lucky to have experienced 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. Just an incredible run. Something that has never happened in Super Bowl history. To go to 5 of them in 6 years. To go to 3 straight after winning the first 2. To be the only one that returns to the Super Bowl after winning back-to-back. To go for a three-peat. Those were the things that culminated with last night's incredibly frustrating night. You picked a bad night to have a bad night. Mahomes picked a terrible night to have a terrible game. Andy Reid picked a bad night to have a bad game plan.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that went into last night. And the Eagles, by the way, spent a couple of years thinking about that loss to the Chiefs and how they felt like they gave it away by having the 10-point lead and fumbling the ball and the Chiefs getting back into it. And they were screwed by James Bradbury's holding call and all of the stuff that they want to talk about. You know, the Chiefs spent an entire year thinking about the Cincinnati Bengals at home in the AFC Championship game. San Francisco spent a number of time, but they didn't have like sort of that same team, it felt like. You know what I mean? It was they had a different quarterback even, San Francisco, over the 2019 to the 2023. This was a good portion.
A better quarterback, too.
That's exactly right, yeah. But it was a good portion of, you know, certainly the head coach, the quarterback, some of those players. Yeah, there was a lot of turnover from the last couple of years.
We talked about even the offensive linemen that stepped in they were backups on that previous team.
So there's a lot of conversation about payback, getting even. They discussed it last night after the game.
Yeah.
This was us getting even. We had talked about that, thought about that. It ate at us for a long time. And they went out there with that on their mind. And I said it last week that, you know, the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to win a Super Bowl. The Chiefs are trying to make history. Does that mean the Chiefs are going to go out and win because of that? I don't know what it means. But there were two different things on the line. The Eagles wanted to win their second ever Super Bowl. And the Chiefs were trying to win their third consecutive Super Bowl. I mean, there's a historical relevance to looking back in the history books forever and to see a 3 straight Super Bowl champion. We've seen teams go to 3 straight Super Bowls. The Patriots went to 3 straight Super Bowls. We've seen that happen before. They lost the one in the middle. They won 2 of 3, went to 3 straight. The Chiefs have won 2 of 3, went to 3 straight. Difference is how they were connected.
Yeah.
Chiefs won 2 in a row, back-to-back, added that in. Patriots won back-to-back, their first sort of dynasty. It was a long, extended stretch of a dynastic run for the Patriots. That included a decade of not winning a Super Bowl. That included a decade of a couple of losses in the Super Bowl and not knowing if Tom Brady would ever get back over the hump that he had those, 10 straight wins in the postseason, starting 10-0 as a quarterback, winning 3 Super Bowls, and then having a stretch of when he loses to Eli and Sanchez and Flacco and Cutler throughout the playoffs. And like, what the hell's going on? This guy's not the same anymore. Like, this guy's a great regular season quarterback, and they put up some great numbers, but why aren't they doing enough now you lost the Super Bowl. Now you lost the Super Bowl. Are they ever going to get back over the hump? Oh, the league is caught up to the Patriots. They figured them out. They're getting there, just not winning. And then they go to 5 Super Bowls in 8 years.
Yeah.
Win 3 Super Bowls in that stretch. Well, I guess they had 8 straight AFC Championship games, so I think it was 5 Super Bowls maybe in 7 years, and win 3 of the Super Bowls there, where the Chiefs had 3 in 6 years. So a better 6-year run. Regardless, Chiefs had also in the 7 years that Mahomes has been quarterback, they have the most postseason wins of any team in the history of the league. 3 more than what the Patriots had in a 7-year run. 2011, 2017 Patriots had 14 wins, and the Chiefs had 17. 2012 to 2018 Patriots over that 7-year run had 13, and the Chiefs have 17. So even at best, they're 3 games better. It's been an amazing run. Last night sucked out loud.
If it was a close loss, I think we handle this. I don't want to say handle it better, but I think I'm less irritated than I am right now. Because even the 18-point loss that it was feels like it wasn't an 18-point loss.
It's weird that an 18-point loss felt like it was worse than an 18-point loss, because an 18-point loss is still pretty bad because the Chiefs don't typically lose by 2 scores, and they lost by 3 scores last night.
And just it was a culmination of offensive ineptitude. I think the defense for the majority of the game actually played really good, which is hilarious when you see a 40-spot put up.
Defense did what they could to win that game.
I went into that game, I said, Saquon's not getting 100, and Saquon's not scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
Saquon got 57, because what does Spags do? He makes you play left-handed. They made the Eagles play left-handed. The issue is the offense of Kansas City was so bad that it did not matter. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, Jalen Hurts played good enough. Jalen played good enough that without Saquon Barkley, they were still able to get it done. And that's what's so frustrating is what would this game have looked like if the offense for Kansas City played even average? Even average. It would have been down to the wire.
Yeah.
Did the Chiefs win?
Well, if they play average, Mahomes doesn't throw the 2 interceptions if they're playing average.
Sure.
So there's 10 points, or 14 points right there
Yes.
that were off interceptions. If they're playing
So
average,
26-22?
yeah, if they're playing average, they get a couple of scores in the first half. Maybe it's 10 points, maybe it's 6, I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe they're down 13-6 at halftime if they just play average and not like ass.
2 scoops.
Vig. Ass vig instead of average. I don't know.
I
Trying to think of
hated
some
that.
sort of
I
a
hated
combination.
that.
Well, you said 2 scoops. I was trying to, go to 3 scoops, and it was probably 1 too many scoops. Or
One
two-
too many scoops.
two-
I mean, you know about the raisins.
2 or 3.
What it came down to was that
scoops.
Spags had a good game plan, and I would have loved to see what would have transpired if the offense did their job.
Mm-hmm.
And even a tiny bit of what we've seen this offense do.
Yeah.
Not look like the Carolina Panthers the majority of the season. And that's the frustration, because I do think Spags, he will not get the credit he deserves. Turk Wharton will not get the credit he deserves. Turk Wharton was a madman.
he was awesome.
Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil and the defensive, just the flying around of the front seven was phenomenal in this game, and no one's going to remember how good they played because they still lost by 18, and you're going to look back in a couple of years and say, wow, they gave up 40 points to the Eagles. And you're going to look at the box score, not us, but there will be people, and go, wait, how did the Chiefs lose by 18? Patrick had 3 touchdowns? 257 yards?
Yeah.
And that's not what the game was. The game was lost on offense for Kansas City, and that's the frustrating part, that Patrick Mahomes, he's the one guy I think you look toward, offensive line, play calling, all that, but he is the guy you look towards and say, did he let this team down on the biggest stage?
So when we get into the game, most of the commentary was 1 through 53, the Eagles have the more talented roster, and boy, did it look like it last night. The Eagles overall roster more talented than the Chiefs. But what do the Chiefs have? They have the better coach, they have the better quarterback, they have the better defensive coordinator, right? They have the best defensive player on the field in Chris Jones. They have those 4 pillars: coach, QB, DC, best defensive player. 1 through 53, Eagles. Main parts of a team, Chiefs. Chiefs' weakness, offensive line. Eagles' weakness, pass rush. That's the thing. It's one thing to misread the Bucs game and say, boy, you were watching one of the best defensive fronts in football in 2020 with the Buccaneers, and we just whiffed on Andy Reid's ability to then make adjustments with that and put a good enough offensive line in front of Patrick Mahomes and to do anything against that defensive front. It's a little bit different with last night's game because there wasn't much of an indication that would say the Eagles would look like that, because the 2020 Buccaneers were, number 5 in sacks in the NFL. They were number 3 in pressure percentage in the NFL. The Eagles 2 years ago, they were number 1 in sacks with 70 of them. And they were number 2 in pressure percentage. The Eagles this year had 41 sacks. They were 13th. They were 28th in pressure percentage. This wasn't oh my God, they're going to get after Patrick Mahomes. No, the strength of the Eagles was their secondary. And when they didn't necessarily put pressure on a quarterback, they still had a negative EPA passing or in the secondary without pressuring the quarterback. Their secondary was so good. And if the Eagles could pressure you with just 4, well, then you're in for a long day. And that's what they were able to do. And that's the disappointing part, is because while there were indications about Tampa Bay and the Eagles a couple of years ago, there wasn't much to where you go into this game and go, oh my God, the offensive line is just going to be overwhelmed. Because that's not typically what the Eagles front has done. Again, they are 4 spots away from being dead last in pressure percentage this year, okay? They don't necessarily blitz a whole lot. The problem is they didn't have to blitz. They got overwhelmed. And I think the Chiefs had a game plan in how they were going to attack the Eagles. And the Eagles just simply beat them. And the Chiefs' adjustment never happened.
Yes.
It didn't happen. The Eagles didn't blitz and played cover 4 60% of the time. They didn't blitz and played cover 4. They quite literally did the same thing every play. They just played quarters up at the top, didn't blitz, and said, beat us. Here's what we're doing. I don't think you can, because our defensive line is kicking your ass, and number 15 is seeing ghosts. He's happy feet. He's feeling pressure when there's not any. He's running into pressure. The quick passing game isn't happening because we're dropping 7. We're getting into these lanes quickly underneath, and we're putting guys over the top. So we're not allowing you to get rid of the ball quickly because we got guys there. And then if you want to drop back and take time to try to hit something deep or whatever, or secondary, well, we got guys that are putting pressure on you. So how do you adjust? Well, I don't know. Maybe you hand it off to a team that's playing cover 4.
Yes.
From 0-0 to 17-0, the Chiefs ran 13 plays. They handed it off one time, and that was when Kareem Hunt hit Travis Kelce. Even that timing was off. That was the only handoff before it was 17-0. Then it was 17-0, and what they do, they handed it off twice to Pacheco, gained 1 yard. -2, and then a 3-yard gain, 3rd and 9, didn't pick it up, punted. Like, you have to then look at what's going on if you're Andy Reid. Hey, my quarterback is struggling here through these first couple of drives. I probably need to help him out here.
Yes.
Maybe we can do something. Even starting the second half, the first play was a 6-yard carry to Isaiah Pacheco. The next 4 plays were passes and a punt.
Yep.
Pacheco, 6 yards. Pass, first down, pass, punt.
What happened to the RPOs? The first play of the game, right? Wasn't the first play of the game an RPO?
Looked like an RPO, sort of like or at least it was a diversion with Xavier Worthy. They were going to throw the pass down the line of scrimmage, set up that screen, and then boom, you got them coming up, and then bam, you hit Juju Smith-Schuster right there for a 11-yard gain.
And how often have we talked about like that had been one of their strong suits as the season went on into the playoffs? We're going, the RPO game is back in KC, and they just abandon it. You're right. The frustration, the lack of adjustment from Andy. I mean, they're rushing 4. If you're getting beat that bad, maybe keep a running back in to help block.
Well, there was a couple times they had max protect. I mean, they had 7 guys in there, and they put pressure on Mahomes with 7 guys, and 4 of them got there.
And I don't want to Joe Thuney. The Chiefs would not be where they were at without Joe Thuney taking over at left tackle. That was not a good day for Joe.
No.
And were you surprised? Maybe you weren't. They didn't try at least an adjustment at a halftime. Maybe you don't do it, but maybe you move him back to left guard and you bring in DJ Humphries. Because
I tweeted out before halftime that at this point you need to bring in DJ Humphries because Thuney and Caliendo were just getting beat down.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unfortunate. You know, Josh Sweat, a guy who signs a 1-year, $10 million contract with the Eagles, been with them since 2018. The guy has had 6 games in his entire career dating back to the 2018 season in which he's had double-digit sacks. Last night he had 2.5. That was a career-high sack game for Josh Sweat. It came in the first half. He had 6 pressures in the game in the first half against 5 different blockers. They had that guy who was okay. He's good, but he's a 1-year, $10 million edge. There's a lot of 1-year, $10 million edges out there. He earned himself some money. I think there's going to be a team that overpays because of that performance. Sure. Like I said, the guy's had double-digit sacks 6 times in his entire career, playoffs included. He had 0 sacks this entire postseason until last night, and he has 2.5. That's the point about, like, well, we just misread what was going to happen. No, the advantage was Mahomes should have had time to throw, or you could run on him. They just got their ass kicked. Josh Sweat just went out and played like a madman. And Andy Reid never adjusted to what the defense was doing, which was kicking your offensive line's ass. You got to adjust at that point. What we thought was going to happen, we had advantages in our pass protection because Jalen Carter can get there. Milt Williams can move around. That's fine. But Lynx and Sweat and Nolan Smith are not good enough to overwhelm our tackles the way that Hunter and Anderson did against the Texans.
Sure.
We're okay here. We can do this. But at some point you realize, okay, we're not okay. Caliendo is getting beat up, and the run game, Caliendo, the handoff to Pacheco after down 17-0 that lost 2 yards, it's because Caliendo just fell. He went to go block his guy, and he fell, and that guy hits Pacheco for a loss of 2 yards. He went to block him, and and he fell. And he didn't block he fell. I'm going to go, I've fallen, and I'm trying to get back up. Oh, darn it, too late. -2 yards. If he blocks somebody, maybe there's a hole there. At some point, you go, he's getting beat on pass protection. He's getting beat. We have now an issue at 2 spots on the offensive line. How about we make an issue on only 1 spot on the offensive line and coach around that? Let's bring in DJ Humphries and put our all-tackle or all-pro guard from tackle back to guard. I've agreed with what they've done to this point.
Yes.
But you do have – it's like what Teddy Bruschi said. The Chiefs have the ability to adjust to the game they're in and not just the game they were planning for. Last night, they didn't do that. They didn't adjust to the game they were in. They stayed with the game they were planning for. And the Eagles came out and just said, this is what we're doing. We're playing cover 4.
Yeah.
We're not blitzing. And you won't beat us.
It was our 19-1. It really felt like that the whole night. I mean, the score's different because the defense wasn't the Patriots' defense in 07 in the undefeated season, but that's all. I mean, even the Mahomes getting his arm tugged, throwing it deep when Brady had the same thing happen to him in that same game. It all just felt like that game, and that'll be our, we were this close to history, kind of like Pats fans talk about that undefeated season.
Yeah. That by the way, that play scared me because I'm like, the game's over. Just don't get hurt.
I agree.
At this point, like, don't mess up your arm. And we saw Brock Purdy have to have, Tommy John surgery because of something like that. I'm like, we saw Drew Brees, tear his labrum by going for a fumble, but still, you get your arm yanked back, especially when Mahomes is winding up to throw the ball 50 yards down the field, not like a little dump off and his arm gets hit. He's getting ready to throw the ball as far as he can and gets the arm pulled backwards. That scared the bejesus out of me.
By the way, that final
that's
throw.
shoulder. That's not elbow. That's like a rotator cuff
that's
injury.
Scary.
Yeah.
That
Luckily,
final throw by Patrick to Xavier Worthy, again, if you want to have some sort of pot, I get it. It's the backups of the Eagles were in, so they weren't getting the pass rush, and the safety play was not going to be the same as.
Fine, whatever.
But that was the best throw we have seen from Patrick on a deep ball all season long.
The Chargers won, so there was 2 of them. There was the one to Chargers in, week 3 or 4 when Rashee Rice got injured. He had the 50-yard touchdown to Worthy, but it was sort of the same thing.
It was a 67-yard air yard dot.
Yeah. No, I would like for them to do it a little bit more. Like you've got Worthy one-on-one there.
I would almost say that the one in Chargers was more important because it actually mattered to the game.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yes.
Sure.
And I know there were backups in. Certainly, there's some.
I made sure I
know,
led with that.
You mentioned that. You mentioned that, but it was still having to track the football, having to hit him on the run, and Worthy having to sort of hand fight with his right hand and bring the ball down with his left in a ball that traveled 67 yards while he's running full speed, holding on to the ball, falling like a sack of potatoes in the end zone, not falling light. I mean, he fell like he was a bag of stones and holding on to the football. And it's like, okay, this guy's legit. This guy is a true first-round draft pick wide receiver. How do you figure out different ways to do that with him next year when Rashee Rice is back and whoever else is on the team at wide receiver? Maybe they re-sign Hollywood. I don't know. But have more opportunities to where he's splitting the safeties. I'm just going to throw it. I'm going to throw it because the man tracks the football and catches it.
Him and Rashee are going to feast. Him and Rashee
would hope.
They could not. That to me is one of the best on paper young tandems.
Mm-hmm.
Again, on paper, I get that, but young tandems in the NFL, just their play style is so different, and they really help each other out with what they do. I know we're talking next year already. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here, but that at least brought some excitement to a game that was so unexciting for Kate. That and the Leo Chanel onside kick, which I loved.
That was pretty neat. Yeah. I was talking to my son on Saturday. We were watching college basketball. I think it was Oklahoma versus whoever they played. I can't remember who it was. Was it Tennessee maybe? I think it was Tennessee. The ball's going out of bounds. I know, and on Tennessee's, on offense, and they're trying to just save it, and they just throw it back in, and it goes to a guy standing wide open at the three-point line who buries a three. And you're like, well, when that happens, Oklahoma's not your night. When Hopkins dropped the ball, it's not your night. You're done. That was it. And I think everybody on the team knew it. The defense knew it. Chris Jones going down to a knee. They all knew it. That was the moment because there was nobody there. You're getting points. You're probably getting 3. And if you could make a move down the field with one blocker and one guy to beat, maybe you score, or maybe you set yourself up to be closer and then you score, and it's 24-7. You come out in the second half, and maybe you don't feel like run it once and now pass. Who knows? Or it's Andy Reid, and he'll do that anyway. But that was when that happens, it ain't your night, man. When Mahomes throws it behind Kelsey on the first drive of the game on 2nd and 9, and one, it was inaccurate, but also maybe catch the ball.
When I started seeing the coaches showing emotion and kind of getting, emotionally, I would say a little
animated.
Yeah, animated. That's a good
theatrical,
word.
Yes.
Where he's clapping his play sheet to the team.
Like, hey, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, that's when I was kind of worried because you don't really ever see Andy and Spags and those guys do that.
Yeah. And, of course, they got screwed by the refs last night, Chiefs. Just joking. How about this? Overcome it. 3rd and 5, good call, bad call, whatever. Overcome it. They didn't score a touchdown. Don't get beat by Jahan Dotson for a 27-yard pass. You know what I mean? Don't get beat on a stop and go by Jahan Dotson, Jalen Watson. You have an opportunity. Don't line up off sides when you get a big sack. Don't hit the guy when the ball has already landed and is rolling away from Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, was it weak? Yes.
But don't do it.
Don't even put yourself in this situation.
That's why it's called unnecessary roughness, because it was completely unnecessary.
Don't put yourself in that
sort
situation.
Of the point.
Well,
it's in the definition.
This Chiefs team had been really good at this all year long, at being smart.
Right.
This was a game where they all forgot. They all forgot.
They played like what they typically make the other team play like. They were making the mistakes, panicking, and succumbing to the moment, and feeling it slip away before it's actually slipped away. That was the part. It's like, oh my God, it's slipping away. Well, it hadn't at that point. You're down 10-0. It's slipping away. It's 3rd and 16. I got to make a play. No, it's 10-0 still. You've been down 10. Now it's 17-0. Now it is slipping. Oh, I gotta throw it no matter. Interception. 24. Now it's slipped away. It hadn't slipped away before you started to panic thinking it was slipping away. Now it's completely out of the grasp. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. 913-381-810 is the phone number. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-381-810. Take your phone calls. Field Yates coming up at noon. Do a number of different things as, we'll have plenty of time to talk about what happens now moving forward. Still talking about what we saw last night. And it was unfortunate from the defensive standpoint because I really did feel like the defense did enough. Yeah. They gave up 40, although they gave up 33. But they give up that many points, and you're like, how can you possibly credit the defense? Well, the Philadelphia Eagles, up 24-0, had 24 points on drives that were a total of 110 yards. 110 yards. They had a touchdown drive of 69 yards. Nice. On 3rd and 5 was the McDuffie 15-yard penalty. Good penalty, bad penalty, whatever. Would have been 4th and 5 at the 42-yard line. Maybe they go for it and pick it up. I don't know. I don't know what the game looks like. But they go 69 yards, and they, score a touchdown. Up 7-0. Then they go 27 yards and kick a field goal to go up 10-0. They gain 27 yards, field goal. Pick 6, and then 14 yards for a touchdown. So they had 17 points on 41 yards of offense. 17 points, 41 yards of offense. 14-yard touchdown drive and a 27-yard field goal drive and a pick 6. That's 17 points. That's the defense? No, the defense was doing enough to keep the offense in the game. The problem was the offense couldn't even do enough to flip field position. They couldn't even get a few first downs just to punt from their own 40. And by the way, even if they did, I'm guessing Ariza would have kicked it into the end zone.
0 touch.
Maybe Matt Ariza could learn the definition of, or at least the phrase, perfect is the enemy of great. Or good. Because has anybody seen him drop the ball from the 5 to the 10-yard line? It almost always lands and hits first from the 5 to the end zone.
And by the way, it's always topspin. It just takes off.
But he's had a couple that have landed just in the end zone and have just stopped. And it's like, oh, so close. How about this? You've got a wide gap between the 20 and the end zone. Anything between the 20 and the end zone is positive yardage for your team. Trying to get it to the 1 is costing your team hidden yards time and time again. You know what their punter did? Kicked it down to the 7. Just kicked it out of bounds. Down to the 7. Kicked it high to the 5. Remigio wanted to return the punt. I'm fine with that. Picked up a couple of yards. Got it to like the 7.
Do you know how many punts Matt Ariza had?
Last night?
He had 6. Okay. Do you know how many were in the 20?
Inside the 20?
Yeah.
0?
0. 6 punts, 0 in the 20.
How many were touchbacks?
2. Braden Mann had 2 punts. Want to know how many of his were inside the 20?
Both.
Yeah, both.
Yeah. And there's also some field position to go.
No, I get it. I get it. There's some.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, but that's sort of the point. You had 2 opportunities that you kicked into the end zone. One of them you just simply boomed. It was like at the 40, your own 40-yard line.
Yeah, one was outstanding.
Yeah.
Not gonna argue the 60-yard bomb.
Kick the air out of it. Maybe exploded the football. I'm not sure. But the other one, when you got to have a little bit of touch and it lands at the 1-yard line and just immediately goes into the end zone, like it doesn't have to land at the 1. Like he's supposed to be a guy that had really good touch or make it land softly. But that's just part of the overall issue. Defensively, though, I thought they did enough in the game, coming out and stopping Saquon Barkley the way that they did. I mean, they made a point to limit Saquon and say, you're going to have to beat us a different way. You can credit Jalen Hurts for doing that, and Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes last night, and we've talked about the struggles that Patrick had. And he talked about it, and we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes, too, in the post-game press conference. But I think there are also some circumstances that surround that. The pass rush was not up to par on the Eagles. You did enough to put yourself into second and longs and third and longs because of how you played against Saquon Barkley. You earned those. Then you didn't pressure Jalen. And if you did, you left a seam open and he ran up the middle for 15 yards and 25 yards a couple of times. Like, he's going to get you. That was great. He played well from that standpoint. He was accurate in the game. He also had the third longest time to throw this year in 3.4 seconds to throw while only being pressured 24% of the time. Like, it's one thing if it's 3.4 seconds because he's running around and scrambling and trying to get away like Mahomes was last night at times. But this was 3.4 seconds because he was standing back there and looking around and having all day to throw. There is a little bit of an easier time to throw a dime and a dart to Dotson when nobody's pressuring you and Dotson has a 5-yard gap on Watson. I'll just lay it in there. The Devontae Smith dime was a beautiful pass.
Yeah.
While sort of sitting there, waiting, seeing Devontae Smith break open on Jalen Watson and then throw the ball. Great pass. It is a little bit easier when the line has protected. He did what he needed to do. I think the defense was the MVP last night, but how do you give it to just one person? Is it Josh Sweat? I saw some people that said their MVP vote, that they had votes in the game.
Yeah.
Their MVP vote went to Josh Sweat.
Cooper DeJean.
Cooper
Pick
DeJean
six.
could have got that. Vic Fangio can't get the MVP, but maybe he was.
Milton Williams or Zach Bond.
Right. I mean, that's the problem is there's so many different ones, and you're like, okay, well, we can just give it to one offensive player in Jalen Hurts because different guys got touchdowns and Saquon didn't do anything, and Jalen Hurts had a couple of passing touchdowns and the rushing touchdowns. Rushing touchdown. All right, 3 touchdowns and 1 turnover. Here's your MVP, sort of easy enough that because he's the quarterback. But still, heck, you can even make a case that maybe Saquon, because there was so much attention paid to Saquon constantly that they left everybody else one-on-one. Jalen Watson, you're one-on-one with Devontae Smith or Jahan Dotson. Trent McDuffie, one-on-one with A.J. Brown.
That was my frustration.
A.J. Brown won a number of those matchups.
They would rush 4, get no pressure, and somehow A.J. Brown still has a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like, I was just perplexed at times. Again, overall, I don't want to blame the Chiefs' defense because that was the best part of the game.
Because they kept giving opportunities to the offense.
Do you know how many tackle for losses the Chiefs had last night?
I'm going to say like 4 or 5.
10.
Like I said, 10.
10.
Yeah.
They stopped Hurts or Saquon Barkley.
A couple times where Hurts slid down.
10 times.
Saquon in the backfield. Gainwell got tackled for a loss. Yeah.
10 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, it's perplexing how this game ended up playing out for how solid the majority of the Chiefs' defensive game plan was. I thought Bolton, for the majority of the game, was outstanding. Again, we can talk about the lack of a pass rush from Kansas City. Part of that was the fact that they had to keep going back on the field time after time. They get a stop. Oh, no, they're back on because Mahomes threw an interception on the first play. Like there was just so much frustration because they had to keep going back out. You can only hold him so long.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're going to get – I mean, how many times did we see Chris Jones at times couldn't even get into a stance because he was just gassed? They were gassed.
Well, that's like, I think time of possession is sort of is a stat that is used for, old school football of like, oh, time of possession. They had 34 minutes and the other team had 26, so that's why they won the game is because of time of possession. I think it's a stat that doesn't mean a whole lot unless – like if you possess the ball for 20 minutes in the first half, and or the other team possesses it for 20 minutes and you possess it for 10 in the first half, like, all right, there's a problem, there's an issue. But if you're scoring quickly and you've got 21 points on your 10 minutes and the other team is methodically moving the ball down the field and kicking a field goal, methodically moving the ball down the field and kick a field goal, methodically moving the ball down the field and turning it over. Well, they possess it for 20 minutes. You've only possessed it for 10. Yeah, we're up 21-6, though. But it's different when you're going 3 and out, and then they are possessing the ball and scoring a touchdown. 3 and out, and then they are going down the field. Interception, and then they have possession of the ball. 3 and out, and then they have – it's a little bit different there because the defense is out there constantly just having to face play after play after play. And – it is not conducive to you winning the game.
Do you know how
I do not
bad the offense has to be to tire out the defense in a Super Bowl where commercials happen every single second and they're like 6 minutes long?
Yeah, it's a good point.
45-minute halftime.
Yeah.
That was the thing. It's like You go to half, and I'm like so annoyed. I'm like, great, now we got to wait an hour just to get out there for the third quarter to see more football. Like, I don't want to sit here for an hour. I just want, like, I have no idea what Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance looked like because I was annoyed, and I have no idea what the Weeknd's halftime performance looked like in 2020 in Tampa Bay. No clue.
By the way,
No clue.
One you're okay to miss. The other one I feel like I wish I would have seen.
Yeah.
So.
I watched the Kendrick one, and I don't get it. He's not from New Orleans. Why would you not have Lil Wayne like currency or like New Orleans? Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this, but maybe I'm
clearly
too
do.
old.
You are.
But like, I'm still saying you can have it be hip hop and have Lil Wayne do it because he's from New Orleans. You can have currency do it. He's from New Orleans. Like, this guy's from L.A. You're gonna be in L.A. in 2 years. What? All because he has a diss track out? Again, I don't know, guys. It's not for me.
Next year it's got to be E40, right?
I'm cool with it. You know why?
It's in San Francisco.
It makes sense. It's San Francisco.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You know, we talk about who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and 1 through 4 seems to be a consensus. 1 being Mahomes, 2, 3, 4, sort of figure out different people have different opinions, different strokes for different folks, different flavors. And then number 5, it's like, all right, who is the 5th best quarterback in the NFL? Is it now Jaden Daniels? Where does Jalen Hurts come in, right? And now Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl. He's the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl since Mahomes was drafted. And, I mean, Matt Stafford was drafted before Mahomes. Tom Brady was drafted before Mahomes.
Wow. That is a wild statistic.
Mahomes was drafted right where Mahomes was drafted. So he wasn't drafted after Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was not drafted after Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. So after Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts is the first one to win a Super Bowl. So he's got the ring. And it's like, you know, depending on how good the surrounding cast is, like, you know, good enough to where Jalen Hurts goes out there and does that when he's not really in the conversation of being an elite Super Bowl winning quarterback. Okay, well, he went to the Super Bowl and lost. Then he returned to the Super Bowl and won. Not many guys have been able to do that, of lose their first Super Bowl and then win another one. You know, Elway did that. There's been a few others that have gone and done that.
Well, also, Hurts was good in this game, by the way. It wasn't like Hurts was just along for the ride.
Yeah, Greasy. Len Dawson lost one and then went on to win one. So there's been a few of them. Jalen Hurts was is now one of them that lost the first one, because it was a conversation we had about Joe Burrow. When Burrow lost, it's like, all right, well, we've seen quarterbacks go to their first one and lose and then not win one again. Never either never getting back or then losing another one.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts, you know, broke that streak and went and won a Super Bowl and played well. He played well enough to get the MVP. I think that the defense, if you could collectively chop the MVP up to 11 players or more, then that would be you the real MVP. You know, that would be Kevin Durant coming out and actually taking the MVP from Jalen Hurts and giving it to the defense. You the real MVP defense. That would be more appropriate because they were absolutely dominant. And it's like, okay, so where is Jalen Hurts in the pantheon and the rankings of current quarterbacks, and is he now in elite status? Does he solidify himself as he's definitely number 5 now? Because at times this year, it's like, well, he's kind of holding this team back, and he's not playing well anymore. And when he's pressured, he's literally ranked dead last in expected points added and all the advanced metrics when pressured. Well,
we saw him when he was
Chiefs
pressured in this
didn't
game. Well, we saw the few times handful of times he was an interception.
And then one at the feet of the defensive back.
Yes.
You know, when they were running down the field. There were a couple of those. And so, like, you know, when he's pressured, those are the things that we've seen from Jalen Hurts. But he's got Saquon to rely upon. That defense is pretty darn good. The offensive line clearly good enough. And some short fields. Weapons to throw to. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, there's some things around him. And I think when you get in the NFL, and this is where Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, it's why they put a lot of the blame on their shoulders, and there is a lot of that to rest on their shoulders because heavy is the head. And when it's the reason I'm picking the Chiefs is because of Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they sort of combined to feel like they got thoroughly dominated, well, they're the reason you pick them. Like, if you were just going off of, well, who's got the better team 1 through 53? Well, it feels like the Eagles do. Okay. If all positions were equal, then who's going to win? Well, the Eagles. But all positions are not equal. You have coaches and you have quarterbacks that can separate things. It's the ultimate equalizer. Well, Mahomes didn't play well. He played brilliant against the Bills, which is why the absurdity of, well, the GOAT conversation is done. I don't care about the GOAT conversation. You guys can have the GOAT conversation, whatever. But the commentary about, like, a dude from San Francisco, I don't remember his name, that covers the 49ers, and I guess has covered the 49ers a long time, said Mahomes will now never be better than Joe Montana because Montana never got blown out in a Super Bowl. And I didn't tweet this because I didn't really tweet any. I just retweeted some like Chiefs players and stuff, and then went to bed or tried to go to bed. I think I got like roughly 45 seconds of sleep, maybe. I'm not sure, but it was. And I'm like thinking to myself, so this is the LeBron debate. Mahomes' legacy would be better if he lost to the Bills.
Yes.
Play great and lose to the Bills. Therefore, the Bills go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Eagles, rather than play one of the best games of your career to get your team to the Super Bowl and to beat Josh Allen, who was also Herculean in that game, to advance to your 5th Super Bowl in 6 years, but have a bad night to have a bad night and play one of your worst games, and that kills your legacy because you did what you had to do the previous weeks to get there.
Yeah.
What he needs to do is miss the playoffs after his first Super Bowl and then lose to Jake Plummer in the divisional round going for a three-peat. That's what Tom did
Right.
to become the GOAT.
That's my point. It's like Tom got
Jake
blown
Plummer.
out by like 30 in a wild card game. Mahomes has never lost a wild card game or divisional game. what the Chiefs have done over these 7 years is it has been such an amazing ride. This wave of success that was non-existent for this Chiefs organization, this Chiefs franchise for decades. And to have these 7 years happen, waking up the day after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl sucked. Waking up the day after the Bengals lost in the AFC Championship game was the worst feeling I think I've ever had as a Chiefs fan. It's one thing, like last night I couldn't sleep because I had a terrible migraine. It wasn't really because, or maybe the migraine was caused by the loss. The Bengals game, I couldn't sleep because I'm sitting there going, how? Why? It's not real. It's a nightmare. And then sleep for 20 minutes, wake up and go, oh my God, it was real. Like, how in the hell did this happen? Like, I want to scream at the world. I want to get on the air at 10 o'clock and just go, bleep you guys for doing that to me, right? I was so mad. I woke up this morning, tired, probably not as tired as Dylan and Jack and everybody that actually did, Lebo and those guys that actually worked, mainly because I'm probably like a lot of people in Kansas City. Maybe it was a little tough to sleep. Maybe should have taken some grandpa's old cough medicine. Maybe that would have helped me.
I made hot tea last night. I made some peppermint tea.
Is that just bourbon? Is hot tea bourbon? It just feels so hot when it goes.
It's a hottie toddy.
It's called a Kentucky hug. That's what I was told. I tasted bourbon once, and they're like, that's a Kentucky hug is what it is, right? It just hugs your chest.
Oh, I'm stealing that, by the way. Just so you know, I'm taking Kentucky hug.
Just that Kentucky hug right there. But I woke up this morning, and I'm like, all right, let's break down the game. What happened? All right, let's talk about, what took place. Let's talk about these 7 years. Because after the Tampa Bay loss, it was like they had a chance to get back-to-back. We know how hard it is to get to the freaking Super Bowl. They were trailing by 24 to the Houston Texans, trailing by 10 to the Titans, trailing by 10 to the 49ers. They sort of coast through this year, and then they have all these injuries that ravage them, and they just got beat down. And now they're 1-1, and you feel like, all right, you went to 2, but man, you feel like you need to win a couple. Like winning 1 with Patrick Mahomes, okay, great. You got the monkey off your back early. You got an MVP. You got a Super Bowl. You got a Super Bowl MVP. You went to 2 to back up that you were good enough in the AFC and it wasn't a fluke. But are you going to get back after that? There's a lot of restructuring that's going to have to happen. They got to revamp the offensive line. Decisions have to be made with guys and, defense. What's going to happen moving forward? Hitchens and Tyrann Mathieu and all these other different decisions. Next year, they stay with those guys, revamp the offensive line, lose to the Bengals.
Yeah.
Big decisions to make. Revamp the defense at that point. Justin Reed coming in. Crazy-ass draft when you trade Tyreek Hill and just like a huge unknown. Now you've traded Tyreek Hill. You won a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl, lost in the AFC Championship game. You are going backwards, and you're trading one of the best playmakers in the NFL. That helps make your offense go. Mahomes is the straw that stirs the drink, but Tyreek Hill was a big part of the liquid that was in that cup. And now he's gone. What's going to happen? So there was a different feeling at that time than waking up today knowing they've won 3. And they missed out on history. And maybe the last chance we'll ever see somebody go for 3 straight. Maybe. Maybe the Eagles do. I don't know. They seem to be a team that's got some young talent. And, some good players across the board and some young talent.
And their quarterback's already on that second contract.
Josh Sweat's going to get paid. Josh Sweat's going to get paid. Montel Williams is going to get paid. There's 2 guys that are going to get paid. Zach Bond's going to get paid. So either they pay
Milton Williams. Did you say Montrell?
Montrell Williams is going to get. He already got paid, right?
This is how we do it.
This is who's getting paid.
This
is who's getting paid. Na.
You don't ever want to overpay someone in their prime. Montel Williams is well past his.
So it's Montrell.
This is how they did it. Sacking Mahomes all damn night.
And it feels
Didn't
all
feel right. The game was lost in the first half. So, no, not Montrell Williams. Montel, Milton, whoever. Milton Williams is going to get paid. Bond's going to get paid. Sweat's going to get paid. Are the Eagles the one paying him? Or are they going somewhere else? So they have decisions to make, but they have a number of they have a guy on the defensive line they can build around in Jalen Carter that they will pay him eventually
Quinyon
too.
Mitchell, rookie. Cooper DeJean,
yes.
rookie.
I like calling him DeJean because it sounds more
DeJean
French.
Mustard, yeah.
It sounds more
They're
French.
playing in New Orleans. You might as well
Right.
call him Cooper DeJean.
Oh, let me tell you something about Cooper DeJean. Which, by the way, I would put in the low light reel of Mahomes, which there are few, because he's been brilliant, but there are some. I think the 3rd and 16 pass might have been the worst pass of his career. Might have been the worst decision of his career. Because you're down 10-0, you live to fight another day.
Yeah.
It's 3rd and 16. There's nobody open. And even if DeJean does not intercept it, it's 5 yards behind the receiver.
Yeah.
It's not complete. So not only, it's not like, man, if you just didn't see him and it was a 20-yard gain. Oh, he got you. But it was 3rd and 16, you're rolling right, and there's nobody open. And even if DeJean wasn't there, it's still an incomplete pass. Like, that's live to fight another day, which, he has struggled with at times. Let's hear Patrick Mahomes. Let's play I'm trying to think of which one was the one where he, let's play clip number 3. I think this is one. Oh, no, clip number 4, I think, is the one. Clip number 4 is in here. He talks about what they were making him do, and he didn't do it. Here's clip 4 from Patrick Mahomes, asked about what he can learn from this performance.
Yeah, I think just when defenses are going to play the shell coverage and stay back and play man on 3rd down, I can't make bad plays worse. And I think that's something that you saw today is that there was times when guys aren't open and I need to throw the ball away or check it down and let other guys make plays happen. Sometimes I get in where I want to make a big play to kind of spark us, and that's something that I've dealt with my entire career. And if I don't show that I will take what's there in the game, the defenses are going to stay in the coverages that they're in. And I think they only blitzed like 2 times, 1 time this entire game today. So they were going to make me be a fundamental quarterback from the pocket and take what's there, and that stuff I have to get better at.
That last part stuck out to me. They were making me have to be a fundamental quarterback and win from the pocket. And that's something I got to get better at. Look, I think it's interesting, the evolution of Patrick Mahomes, because he's gone from a guy who, beginning of his career, is like, I don't give a bleep. Tight window, firing it between you. Downfield, firing it downfield. Yes, teams have adjusted to that. But still, stepping up in the pocket, rolling out the pocket, running backwards if I need to, gaining extra time to then throw, and not just bailing quickly, but not more willing to put the ball in harm's way for a bigger play. And as teams have gone more and more into shell coverage, 2 deep, cover 4, and playing quarters and bringing 3 or only 4 guys, he's gotten more and more of the throw it short, get it out of my hands, not really throwing into tight windows. All right, this guy's more open, so I'm going to throw it to that guy, or I'm going to see where the open guy is before, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it feels like a lot of his interceptions this year were bad luck. So it's not like he was just making stupid decisions. Last night was just a terrible pass. It was a terrible decision. The second one was bad, but he doesn't throw it to Zach Bond if Joe Thuney doesn't get walked back into him. Like, I can't credit Chris Jones for walking Deion Dawkins back into Josh Allen last year in the divisional round and throwing an incomplete pass, and the next was the Bass missed field goal, and then not credit the Eagles for walking Joe Thuney back into the hip of Mahomes as he's throwing. Because he obviously wouldn't have stood there and threw it towards the ground if that was the case. So it impacted his throw. I know he's saying, I can't make that throw. I get it. That's fine. That one was a little more defensible, because when you're getting hit, sometimes you don't know where the ball is going to go. But he didn't have as many, like, there was bad interception luck early in the season. But it does feel like he's become more risk averse and less willing to throw into tighter windows, less willing to do some of those things that he was doing early in his career. And that's been the evolution of his game. And now it's like, okay, well, they're forcing me just to be a fundamental passer and work from the pocket. and I got to be better at that, which is fine because you can always improve, and no matter what you're doing in life, there's always another level you can get to improve. There's another level that Patrick Mahomes can get to improve. He is not a perfect player, nor will he ever be. But if he strives to be perfect, then yeah, he could be great. He already is. He's an all-time great. He's an elite quarterback. But there were a couple of plays in this game that were left on the cutting room floor because of some decisions by Patrick Mahomes, unfortunately, of just a different feel for what was happening in the pocket. Sometimes he didn't have a lot of time to throw. Sometimes he ran into pressure. And that's the difficulty of saying, all right, well, I need to play within the pocket, but the pocket might be breaking down quickly. The first drive of the third quarter, they ran the ball to Pacheco for 6 yards. They threw the ball to Worthy right down the line of scrimmage for 10 yards. Then Mahomes was sacked on the first down, and then it was 2nd and 11. And he drops back, and the line held up really well. All he's got to do is maybe take one to gain a little bit of depth because the tackles had forced the ends inside, and it sort of started to create this scrum in the middle. As the scrum was starting to happen, Mahomes, who was standing there, the scrum was going to come towards him. So if he takes like 2 steps back and gains depth and gets a little more time, Worthy is running free in the secondary because they had split safeties. One safety was over on the right hash. The safety on the left hash ran forward to get Noah Gray, and Xavier Worthy ran right by that guy. But right as Xavier Worthy was breaking free, Mahomes tucked it and started running forward right into a sack. If he takes 2 steps back, it's a touchdown.
I know the exact play you're talking about, and that was beyond frustrating to watch.
Right.
That was one where the Chiefs almost, and maybe not, touchdown or not, maybe it's just a long play, but it's one of those ones that it feels like you might get the offense back, you get some confidence.
You get a big touchdown right there. It's 24-7. And you're not punting on after the next play because you get sacked there, and then you scramble, roll around, pick up a few yards, and then punt the ball away.
Yeah.
And then they go down and score. Like at that point, the ball game's over, and that could have changed things. I don't know. Or maybe it just delayed the inevitable of giving you a little more hope, and then you don't actually capitalize on some of those things. I don't know, but maybe it gives a spark to the defense that they go out there and get a stop at that point instead of, all right, here we go again, 24-0. We're going to go out there and do it again to get the ball back for them just to go 3 and out yet again. There were plenty of plays when Mahomes didn't have a choice because the offensive line was just whipped.
Sure.
There were plenty of those too. That's where it does fall on his shoulders. And whether that's fair or not, when you are viewed as the best and elite, there is a level of pressure and there's a level of you win the game or maybe lose the game based on how well he plays. If I go out of my way for the last couple of weeks to talk about Mahomes having maybe his best game from an analytical standpoint and drop back success rate, 99th percentile, best of his career. Only 4 games quarterbacks have done that this year at all. And the best of Mahomes' career against the Bills. Then I can't then go, well, yeah, but you can't put anything on Mahomes' shoulders because he played terrible. Like, he got you there. Yes, I acknowledged. Totally agree. If not for Mahomes' play in the AFC Championship game, you wouldn't be playing in this game. I totally agree with that. And if not for Andy Reid being an offensive, mastermind and all of the things,
it's like Joe Tooney moving to left tackle and then having a bad game. It's like, yes, you wouldn't have been in the situation, but we can still have. But
the reason why people were picking the Chiefs to win was because the level of expectation that Mahomes would play at. And if they are fortunate to get back in the Super Bowl again, they have got to figure out why they cannot score in the first half.
Well, I think there's a really interesting conversation to have. And you bring this up, and it makes me really... Howie Roseman and Brett Veach have been known as the best 2 GMs in football. It's been those 2 guys.
To people that watch football, but not to people who vote for Executive of the Year. Continue.
Agreed. But they've been 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But a lot of the talking points, and you've mentioned this, and maybe it's not, 2 through 53. Maybe it's, 4 through 53 because Chris Jones, and I mean, that's a little...
Yeah. Creed Humphrey is the best center in football.
So again, the point remains.
McDuffie's pretty badass.
That Eagles team is a very deep roster. They have a lot of talent and a quarterback who's no longer on that rookie deal, right? They're paying a lot of guys. How much? I don't want to say I do want to say blame, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm upset or furious at Brett Veach because he's put together a phenomenal roster and they just got beat by
5 Super Bowls in 6 years.
I'm not trying to say. So when I say this, when I say blame, I'm not angry.
Mm-hmm.
My point here is how much needs to go on Brett Veach for some of the roster construction here. Whether it's we saw some of the holes with the offensive line. I pushed back a little bit because I think there was a lot of anger after the game, especially with the left tackle situation. I go, well, they tried. They drafted Wanya Morris 2 years ago in the 3rd round. They drafted Kingsley Suamataia this year in the 1st round. Second round. They brought in DJ Humphries, who immediately got injured right away. So at some point, bad luck, or at least it goes against you. There were resources put in, just didn't pan out the way they thought it was going to. So I don't know how much blame to put, again, quote-unquote blame, to put on Brett Veach, but this roster was clearly, at times, not as well constructed as maybe some previous iterations of this team.
Well, because previous iterations also didn't have Mahomes, making $45 million against the cap and things like that. They can always adjust that, right? We know that about his contract. But as you're building this team, you have certain decisions that you're going to make. Chris Jones is on this team. It's a sacrifice you're making to have Chris Jones on this team to fill other spots on the team. Maybe it's a better left tackle if Chris Jones isn't on the team. Maybe it's Saquon Barkley. And you say, you know what? We didn't pay Chris Jones, but we need a true difference-making running game because the Chiefs can't beat these quarters defenses if they don't have a running game. Yeah. And clearly Andy Reid doesn't believe in the running game. If Saquon was in their backfield, are they handing it off once in the first 13 plays against teams that are playing 4 deep? That are having 4 guys at the line of scrimmage? 2 linebackers? I mean, like a couple of corners and then 4 guys playing quarters? Are they just handing it off a couple of times? Or we've got Pacheco, who doesn't look the same as he did before the injury. I think he'll look better next year. Kareem Hunt, who is Kareem Hunt, you know what you're getting from him. But you don't have a difference-making back. You were hoping to get one with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Didn't work out. Misjudged that one. That's on Veach. That's on the front office. That one certainly goes on their record. FAU, that goes on their record. All right, those are 2 first-round draft picks that didn't work out. But Rashee Rice was the second. People talk about, well, they can't figure out the wide receiver spot in drafting. Well, the last 2 wide receivers they drafted are Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I think you can look at McCole Hardman and Sky Moore and those decisions that were made and be frustrated,
the right way.
be frustrated with that and go, well, he can't figure out the wide receiver spot at all. And then you can look at the most recent 2 draft picks and go, Xavier Worthy looks like a damn good pick.
Yeah.
8, 157, and 2 in the Super Bowl. Rashee Rice was pretty awesome last year and was pretty damn awesome in the first 3 and a quarter games that he played this year until he got injured. And, that could help if he was there. He drafted the best center in football in Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round. He drafted a guy who might reset the guard market in the 6th round in Trey Smith
and
that you're not going to afford.
Overpaid Juwan Taylor, who was an
Agreed.
issue.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, like, you look at it and you go, okay, well, there are a number of different holes. Yes, every single team is going to have a number of different holes. Howie Roseman didn't work the board to go and get Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter fell to him.
Agreed.
If Jalen Carter didn't get in the racing after the national championship game, he ain't going 10th. He's like 3rd or 4th off the board. He went 10th for a reason. You know what I mean? And it's not like Howie Roseman went out and said, Bond is the difference maker for our defense. If we get him, we become an elite defense. They paid him $2.5 million. It's 1 year, $2.5 million.
By the way, to be a defensive lineman.
Right. And then he comes in and he plays linebacker.
Coverage line. I mean, I know.
And they never pay off-ball linebackers, and we'll see how much much they're willing to pay an off-ball linebacker because Bond is going to get paid. He earned the bag this year. He's going to get it. Josh Sweat, you sign him, 1 year, $10 million, okay, just to keep him around. All right, that's fine. That's not an elite defensive end. The Tennessee Titans didn't want to pay A.J. Brown. If they wanted to pay A.J. Brown, you can't trade a first-rounder for A.J. Brown. But they didn't want to pay him, and you were the one that said, we'll give you pick number 18, and we'll pay A.J. Brown. So we're giving up a first-rounder, and we're willing to pay. Okay, we're also going to take a wide receiver in the top 10 in Devontae Smith. Okay, we're going to build our offensive line certain ways.
And let's be real. the Chiefs have not had the ability to draft in the top 10, while the Eagles
Agreed.
have had a couple of
Right.
opportunities to.
And we're going to take Mekhi Becton, who was drafted as supposed to be this great tackle, and we're going to bring him in and have him play guard.
Yeah.
Is he going to be amazing? I don't know, but he's going to be a better guard than he was a tackle. And if he gets injured, then we'll figure some things out. But we can't bring him in and have to rely on him with the Jets being your left tackle or right tackle, and he goes down and now you're screwed. We're bringing him in and play right guard to go along with Juergens and Dickerson and Mailata and Lane Johnson. Let's fill that hole with a guy who was a top 15 pick to play tackle and who is a massive human being that can help block for Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the run game.
Well, that's why I think the question is so fascinating.
Which wasn't that expensive to sign Mekhi Becton.
Of Brett Veach, and are we overreacting? Because I've seen a lot of overreactions to this one game, which I understand. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I do think there can be some morsels of truth even in overreactions at times. I think Brett Veach and Howie Roseman are still 1 and 2. I wonder going forward if the roster construction for Kansas City changes at all. Again, will there be more emphasis on trying to get a game-changing running back? Will there be more of an emphasis on the offensive line? Again, you're not drafting top 10, but I'm not even saying drafting one. Is it going to be one where you actually pay a left tackle?
Or you trade up and say, we're trading in the top 15. We're giving up next year. We're giving up the 26 first rounder, and we're moving up this year. We're getting number 15, and we're taking this tackle that shouldn't be on the board at number 15, and we're done.
Which is
left
the worst
tackle,
decision,
figured it out.
because the Chiefs have been really good drafting in later rounds. So I just wonder how the philosophy of Veach changes, because we saw the philosophy change after the Buccaneers Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How does the philosophy change for Brett Veach after this one?
By the way, Darian Kennard, 3 straight Super Bowls for him. He completed the three-peat.
Wow. Yeah.
Darian Kennard did. I told you guys when the Chiefs drafted Darian Kennard, that guy's going to be a 3-time Super Bowl winning guard in the NFL. People didn't believe me. They did not believe me, especially after the first couple of years, and then they cut him this year. And I'm like, you guys are not believing this guy's going to be a 3-time three-peat.
He gave the Eagles all the secrets. That's what it was.
That turncoat. Not that this has anything to do with the Kansas City Chiefs, because I don't think it does. But news around the NFL, lost in the shuffle of all of the lead up to the Super Bowl yesterday, the hoopla and all of that. Deebo Samuel requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, and they granted him.
What year is this?
23? 24. Wait, 25. They have granted his agent permission to seek a trade for Deebo Samuel before free agency opens up. So that came out yesterday. He was walking around Radio Row on Friday asking. He was trading like baseball cards and stuff on Radio Row, so he's really into trading right now. So maybe that just was a first sign that we should have seen that Deebo Samuel's trying to get a trade.
Has there ever been a receiver hyped up more than a guy who's gone over 900 yards receiving one time in his NFL career that happened in 2021?
Yeah.
He's 29 years old. He's a one-time Pro Bowler. Again, don't get me wrong. He had a great year in 2021. Phenomenal year in 2021. But I feel like he thinks he's A.J. Brown.
Well, I mean, 2021, he averaged 88 yards per game receiving. Then 2022 was 49. 23 was 59. This year was 45. So it's not exactly 88 yards per. I mean, it's literally half. 88 to 45. I shouldn't say literally half, but you know.
He averaged 3.2 yards a carry this year. Like, I'm not right. I just don't.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't understand. Like, I get he runs, but I just don't understand the whole. I guess maybe the hype around Deebo anymore. Yeah. Would I like him in Kansas City? Sure, why not?
Yeah. Yep. 913-912-4810 is the text line. I want to get to some texts that have come in. I apologize for those that have been texting in. 913-912-4810. Let's hear from Travis Kelce in the locker room yesterday. Here is about a minute 50, his entire post-game press conference. Thought it was interesting, a national reporter saying, Travis Kelce will not talk today after the Super Bowl, which got, legs and wings and, and then everybody's like replying to that with videos of Travis Kelce, in which that guy then just retweeted. But your tweet is probably being retweeted and stuff by people that don't follow you. So therefore, they wouldn't see your retweet of people quote tweeting and saying he did talk. So they're just sharing your initial tweet, which could then be deleted since he did talk. Anyway, here's Kelce in the locker room.
Hats off to the Eagles, man. They got after us, all three phases.
What was the difference in the game, do you think, at the end of the day?
Couldn't get it going offensively. I mean, they just got after us on all three phases, and then on top of that, turnovers, penalties, playing behind the sticks on offense is just drop passes, not taking advantage of, the play call and executing. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. You don't lose like that without everything going bad. So,
what's most shocking about this type of loss?
That we haven't played that bad all year.
Did they do anything that surprised you guys at all? No. Keep everyone going on the sidelines. Was it difficult today?
I mean, just couldn't find that spark, couldn't find that momentum.
It's the point at which you kind of were going through the game. So many times you guys have been able to turn it around, Travis. Is there a point where you just, knew that today you weren't going to be able to find that plug?
This team is going to fight till the end forever, and you saw that even with the score late. We're always going to fight.
You talked to some of those guys over there and kind of found the guys you wanted to talk to. What was your message to them?
Congratulations.
I feel like at halftime it was totally within reach.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, never lose doubt, never lose faith, in, especially at half.
When the team doesn't have to blitz, Travis, and they can just keep 7 back, just how difficult is that to sort of run your concepts the way you want when the other team's getting pressure with for just about every time?
I think there was a lot of things going wrong. Can't just say that it was just the O-line or anything like that. I think it was accumulated of everything, not really going our way today.
What was Coach's message to you guys afterwards?
This one's gonna hurt. Let it hurt and figure out how to get better because of it.
All right, there's Travis Kelce. I do think he could probably have been a podium guy. Like, I know the podiums weren't that. It was like 4 minutes, 5 minutes or whatever, but, that's all it would really take for him to be at the podium. I mean, he's one of the faces of the NFL. Here's my question. If they'd have won, would he have been at the podium?
Yeah.
If he'd have won and played well, would he have been a podium guy? Didn't play well and lose, and I'm just going to give you a minute 50 at my locker before I leave Super Bowl.
We'll tell you what he
and
thinks.
He's a guy
of
that's
New
not,
Heights.
and a guy that's not talked much anyway this year, but whatever. He did talk, so it's not like, Kelsey just simply left without meeting with the media. There were some guys that were, at the podium, on the podium. Certainly Mahomes up there as well. Here's Patrick Mahomes. He was asked about the Kelsey retirement question. Ian Rappaport saying that there are, sources that say that Travis Kelsey will take some time to think about what his future is, if he's going to play football next year or not. Here's Patrick Mahomes asked about that question.
I'll let Travis make that decision on his own, man. He's given so much to this team and to the NFL, and been such a joy, not only for me to work with, but for people to watch. And so he knows he still has a lot of football left in him. I mean, you can see it. He always makes plays in the biggest moments. But it's if he wants to put in that grind, because it's a grind to go out there and play 20 games, whatever it is, and get to the Super Bowl. And he's done enough to be a gold jacket guy and first ballot Hall of Famer. But I know he still has love for the game, and he'll get to spend some time with his family and make that decision on his own. But, I mean, he knows he'll come back here with welcome arms. We love that guy, not only for the football player, but the person that he is every single day.
I have no idea what's going to go through his mind or what would make the decision for Travis Kelsey. But I thought about this game in, if the Chiefs won, and they won 3 in a row, you can make the case, okay, that's when you go out. You go out on top, You've won 3 in a row, you've done something nobody's ever done before. But then wouldn't you want to go man, let's go for the four-peat, something that will not be broken.
Reverse Buffalo.
Right,
Yeah.
something that will not be broken. Because then you'd have to win 5 in a row if somebody were to break that, okay? So let's go for 4 straight. I can't retire right now. Or if you lose the Super Bowl, do you go, man, I can't retire off a losing Super Bowl? I mean, that's what Jason Kelsey said. Jason Kelsey was going to retire, and then they lost the Super Bowl, and then he returned for 1 more year. Maybe that's also something he's telling Trav, is that, hey, man, I came back for 1 year because that taste was in my mouth, and that season sucked. And
But also, didn't he come back because he was, like many players say, if I retire and they go to the Super Bowl the next season, because the whole team's going to be upset about losing a Super Bowl.
And if I feel like I've got more football left in me,
And
I
I
want to
didn't
play at
play.
least 1 more.
Right.
Then am I going to feel like that I'm going to have that itch, or do I go into this year knowing I'm going to scratch that itch for the final time, and whatever happens, happens. Win the Super Bowl, not win the Super Bowl. This is what we're doing. I thought my last year, we'll see what happens. Then I got to the Super Bowl, and we were right there and lost by a field goal. No, I want that taste again. I want a Super Bowl before I retire. Let's give it 1 more shot with these guys returning. With Kelsey, I don't know. Is it a big loss like that more conducive to saying, yeah, I'm just going to step away from the game, as opposed to a heartbreaking loss? I don't know. Maybe the big loss in playing poorly is there's no way that's my last game in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like someone like Travis, too, he might say when his last year is. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, Jason Kelsey did. I mean, he had a documentary crew.
that's
with him.
my whole point. I wonder
and
if
it still wasn't his last year.
I wonder if Travis does do something along the lines of, hey, let's follow me around, give everyone a chance to see me one last time, all of those things. And who was it? Was it Red Auerbach or was it Bill Russell?
I'll take your word for
when
it.
they were winning all those NBA championships and they were going to retire. And then he goes, you know what? No, I want everyone to have one last chance to bring me down. And I forget if it was Red or Bill, and maybe both. And they're like, you know what? I'll give you 1 more chance to bring me down. And they went out, on top, just being like, hey,
tried to let you.
I tried to let you take me down.
I won
but
the big hand, and I went and andied up again. I was big blind again. But
I forget what it was, if it was Bill or whatever it was. But and I wonder if Travis will do that. But you know what? I want 1 more. See, I want to go out on top, and I want everyone to know, to give me your best shot. And I mean, this team has so much potential. I mean, if you look on any betting site, they're going to be 1 or 2 next year to win the Super Bowl yet again. This is a great team. They will be back.
I think they're number 2 behind the Ravens, or maybe tied with the Ravens or something like that.
Point is, though, I think, and again, I don't know Kelsey like that.
You don't?
I think Kelsey, and seeing him and the competitive nature that he brings, I can't imagine this would be the way he goes out. That would be fairly surprising to me.
I agree with that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Let's see. The Eagles are the betting favorites at plus 600 The Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens are all tied at plus 700. At least that's at DraftKings. So Eagles are the favorite, 6-1. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, 7-1. And then it goes Lions, 49ers, Commanders, Packers, then Bengals, then Rams. Those are the top 10 for the betting odds to win the Super Bowl next year. This year, next year, this upcoming year, not last year, this year, next year. I'm not sure because we're right in that. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm not sure. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next. Ready to wait to WHB. I want to play this clip from Patrick Mahomes because, we were talking about the fact that the Eagles did not blitz in the game. And they are the, I think, 6th team in the Super Bowl to blitz 0 times and all 6 teams that did not blitz won. It was 6-0. The Chiefs were the 6th time that they did not face a blitz. And all of those teams are 0-6. You get the point here. But Patrick Mahomes, when asked about how do you make them adjust to that, to make them blitz, or what do you do, is clip number 6. How do you do that to get them out of what they're doing to sort of force the issue?
I think in order to make a team blitz, you have to be able to beat what they're showing, and that's what we didn't do, especially in the first half. And we made some good adjustments in halftime and came out better, but it was almost too late. The momentum had kind of flipped in their favor in how they play with Saquon and how they can run the football and control the clock with Jalen making big third down conversions. It kind of put our defense in a really bad spot. And so when you're in these big games, you have to play better from the beginning. And that's stuff that I'll have to continue to work on and continue to get better at, and force defenses to blitz by attacking their zone coverage the right way. And so that's something that I can continue to get better at in my career. Yeah, I threw 2 interceptions and they're in. I mean, I threw a pick 6 and I threw a pick that they returned to the 5-yard line and they scored immediately after. So when you give a team 14 points, especially a really good football team, a Super Bowl football team, then not a lot of good things happen. And so that's why I take ownership in this loss more than probably any loss in my entire career, is because I put us in a bad spot. And even though we put up some stats at the end of the game, those stats didn't really matter because I'd already kind of lost the momentum for this entire team. And so I have to be better at not turning over whenever it's not going my way, trusting in my defense, trusting the rest of my team to get those stops until I can figure out what we need to do as an offense.
The Chiefs held the Eagles to 3 of 13 on 3rd and 4th down. The Eagles were 3 of 13 on 3rd and 4th down.
They were all late with Jalen Hurts' legs, too, it felt like.
But, I mean, if I read you these stats, this is what's so perplexing and just about how rough the dash was, like what happened between the dash, But if I read the stats that Saquon Barkley would have 25 carries for 57 yards, no touchdowns, average 2 yards per carry. The Eagles would be 3 of 13 on 3rd and 4th down combined. Xavier Worthy would have 8 catches, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Patrick Mahomes would throw for 3 touchdowns and almost 260 yards.
And the Chiefs' defense would have 10 tackles for loss.
And the Chiefs' defense would have 10 tackles for loss and pick off Jalen Hurts. You wouldn't have guessed that an 18-point loss wasn't indicative of how that game went. It's just amazing when you look at some of those numbers that are there. And yes, the long touchdown to Xavier Worthy was in garbage time and things like that. But still, those numbers of what they did against Barkley and getting off the field as often as they did defensively, just not enough.
He'll help you fantasy focus while he scoops the news. He's on TV more often than he's in bed. He'll break down the NFL without a single hair ever out of place. It's Field Yates of ESPN. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. 2 more hours to go. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up later on in the show. Right now, let's talk to our NFL insider from ESPN. It is Field Yates joining us here on this Monday. Field, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, Jason. How are you this now afternoon?
Yes, I am doing okay. You know, this morning was both MORNING and MOURNING. But the sun, I believe, may come out. I don't know. You know what, Field? It wasn't going to work anyway because Tuesday and Wednesday we're getting this huge snowstorm. So when were they really going to have a parade? So probably just did people a favor, I'm guessing. You know, it just sort of was in the cards. But all that aside, Field, a 40-22 game, typically 18-point margins don't have the feel that it was closer than it actually was, or not as close as the score would indicate, I should say. What did you see in this game that was just a dominant performance by the Eagles, and congrats to them?
Yeah, certainly Jalen Hurts deserves the MVP. It's an award given to a singular player. But if ever there was an instance in where you could have said, I'm just going to give the entire position group an MVP vote, it would be this game yesterday, because ultimately this came down to 4 players on the Eagles able to outduel 5 or more players on the Chiefs. And that was the defensive line for the Eagles, which, as I'm sure you've discussed already, did not blitz Patrick Mahomes once last night, not once, and yet they still completely controlled the game, whether it was 4-man pressures, 4-man rushes, occasional 5-man rushes. I mean, this really was, just a masterpiece of a performance up front. I don't think the Chiefs' offensive line was so bad that this was like, I don't think this was like a bottom 5 offensive line being taken down by the best defensive front in football. I think it was, a solid, even if at times uneven offensive line, meeting its match in a major way last night. And when Patrick Mahomes had no time to do anything, and then he started to make uncharacteristic errors, specifically the back-to-back interceptions, kind of felt like the game went off the rails right there. So a hat tip or a credit, whatever you want to call it, to the Chiefs' defensive front. They felt like really they and Jalen Hurts were the driving forces behind what was, as you said, an 18-point game that actually felt like a wider margin than the final score would indicate.
Yeah, and look, it was a rough game for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I've seen him play poorly at times, but that was as rough of a game as I've seen in a while from Patrick Mahomes. Maybe second half against the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC Championship game. He just didn't look like he had his typical feel for the game. I mean, he was brilliant against the Buffalo Bills and had to play one of his best games for them to get by Buffalo. But last night, it just wasn't that. He was pressured. He was inaccurate at times. He made some bad decisions. I do think maybe one of the worst decisions of his career was that interception to Cooper DeJean. It was 3rd and 16. And, you're down 10-0. And at that point, it's like, all right, you're trailing. The game isn't over. You got plenty of time still. You'll live to fight another day. And even if DeJean isn't there, it's like 5 yards behind the receiver and it hits the ground.
Right.
Like there's no reason to throw it. It was just it was one of those games that was perplexing. And you come away with it going, yeah, the Eagles did what they did. But there's some head scratching from, what took place with Andy Reid and the scheme and the game plan and Patrick Mahomes and executing said game plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, really, I don't know if anybody last night, you're sitting there saying to yourself, like, yep, that went as planned, and it was a good way to dial it up. I think probably the only thing, and it doesn't matter in the grand scheme, but the only area that looked Super Bowl caliber last night was the run defense doing a great job to hold Saquon Barkley to 57 rushing yards on 25 attempts. That being said, everybody else kind of met their mark, or met their match, I should say. With Patrick, I felt personally like it looked at times as though once they got down early in the game, he was trying to make it all back in one play, which, as we know, is impossible to do in football in general. But emotionally, you sometimes feel like, hey, if you can make one thing happen, it can spark a turnaround, whether it's, points on the board or even just the defense kind of settling in a little bit more. So Patrick, talked about this a little bit after the game as well. I thought that, the responsibility he bore told you exactly how he felt about the performance. It's not like he is going to hide behind, whatever the end of the game numbers are. Like, he knows he did not meet the standard that he has set for himself and that everybody holds him to, because he is unequivocally one of the greatest to ever play. As we spin this forward, and Tom Brady talked about it, I thought, eloquently this past week on Colin Cowherd's show about how, the losses in the Super Bowls are what drives him more than anything else. And it's not something that we can assess the day after. It's not something we'll be able to assess a month from now. It's something we'll be able to assess perhaps as soon as next Super Bowl, but definitely over the next handful of years does Patrick's perhaps worst game of his career in the Super Bowl drive him to be an even better version of himself? And does he learn from that? And does it, maybe find new life for him, that despite all of the accolades and 5 Super Bowls in 6 seasons and 3 Super Bowls already and a league MVP and pretty much every possible accomplishment that you could have under your belt by the age that Patrick Mahomes is at, does this maybe find a different spark that I felt like Tom Brady kind of referenced when he talked about how you can be so great, you can have all these rings, but it's the rings you don't get that end up being the ones that stick with you the longest.
Yeah, and I think this is one along, and Mahomes talked about, like you said, that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, he's talked about before, as that's the one that he'll think about the rest of his career until last night. Because like even that loss, Field, it felt like, the margin was wide, but Mahomes was almost described as like almost heroic in defeat because of what he was going up against. And that was the surprising thing for me, Field, is, breaking down this game. And I know, like, going into that Tampa Bay game, coming out of that Super Bowl, I'm like, man, I misread it. I misread. I expected Andy Reid to figure things out on the offensive line. I know the Bucs front is one of the best in football, and they lost Eric Fisher, and Mitchell Schwartz went down, and it's like, oh, we were just sort of figuring things out. The Chiefs will do it. I mean, they took care of business against Tampa Bay earlier this year. Andy Reid will figure it out, and that thing was a colossal disaster. But the Bucs, were number 5 in sacks that year and number 3 in pressure percentage. I don't know that I misread this one, because I felt like the Chiefs' offensive line would be able to hold up against the Eagles' front, because, their defensive ends are not, Will Anderson, that would just simply be able to bull rush Joe Thuney. Is he technically a better, a technically sound left tackle? And the Eagles were 13th in sacks and 28th in pressure percentage, whereas 2 years ago they were number 1 in sacks and number 2 in pressure percentage. So it's like you knew that was a big matchup. I don't know that I misread this one. I just think the Chiefs just got their butt whipped last night at the line of scrimmage, and the Eagles were able to put pressure where that hasn't necessarily been a strength for them this year in pressuring teams throughout an entire game.
Yeah, we've talked a lot over the years about how, the outsiders or the people that weren't Chiefs fans would be sort of bemoan the Chiefs because, hey, they're just not that good. They're not as dominant as their record would say. But the reality of the NFL is, it's a literal any given Sunday week game, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that, if the Chiefs and Eagles played 7 times, the Chiefs would come out on top in that series. I think after last night, you would have to defer to Philadelphia, or at least feel as though, Philly would be the favorite in those circumstances. But one thing I do know is that when one team brings their best, and Nick Sirianni said after the game last night, hey, we wanted to bring our best game. We put our best game together, and the Chiefs don't. Like, that's what happens. Things unravel in a hurry, and so it's so hard. One of the things about the Chiefs that you and I have talked about also almost every Monday for a couple of years now is the measure of a successful season is not wins or statistical performances. It's rings. And that's a significant privilege. It's also a significant pressure. And so maybe 20 years from now, we'll look back and say, just remarkable. Even just to get there is a remarkable accomplishment. No one has made 5 out of 6 Super Bowls. Well, this morning you feel like, as great as this season was, some of it is in vain because of the fact that they didn't come home with a ring. And they were forever not the team that won Super Bowl 59. So You're right. I wouldn't have imagined this was how it was going to play out coming into the game. I would have thought they had a better answer for the Eagles pass rush just in general. But because of the any given Sunday nature of the NFL, that's going to be our lasting memory, even if it is not entirely reflective of how I think each team at its best is capable of performing.
Yeah. Field Yates from ESPN is our guest. I talked about at the beginning of the show, Field, that, last night was incredibly disappointing. No doubt about that. And it was frustrating to watch and that performance. You were hoping that, they picked a bad night to have a bad night. And those things happen in sports. They're human. But it was hard for me to sort of be like when I woke up the day after the Bucs Super Bowl, like I was, pretty rough because they could have been back to back. They could have been the one of 9 franchises in history to win back to back. And it didn't happen. And who knows what's going to happen moving forward. And probably the worst was after the Bengals lost the very next year. So it was you won a Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, then lost in the AFC Championship game. You're going in the opposite direction. Can they win 2 and capitalize on Mahomes, or is this going to be an Aaron Rodgers thing where you're like, okay, you won one? Right. But it's hard for me, Field, to wake up this morning and be like, depressed or like overly inconsolable that they weren't the first team ever to win 3 in a row. Like they did the back-to-back. They became one of, now 9 franchises to be able to do that and win back-to-back games or 9 teams to win back-to-back games. Like they were able to accomplish that thing, and they went back to a Super Bowl for the 3rd time, and it didn't work out. They ran up against a team that played better than they did that night. But this is still a run where they went to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, and the worst performance in Patrick Mahomes has been an overtime loss in the AFC Championship game. It's really hard to be down about what these 7 years have been while disappointed of the result last night. I mean, this 7 years is, way more than I could have hoped for, and quite frankly, 2 more Super Bowl championships than I would have hoped for in my life.
Yeah, it's the greatest 7-year run in NFL history. I mean, I think that, 3 Super Bowl wins and 5 appearances in 7 years. I know there's never been someone to get there 5 times in 6 years. I don't know if anybody has ever reached it 5 times in 7 years. But the bottom line, this is an all-time run by the Chiefs. The thing that the shadow that is sort of there within striking distance for the Chiefs that I think probably has some fans feeling down this morning is just the idea that, they could reach the Brady Belichick Patriots level, right?
Yeah.
And get to 6. It's also a 19-year stretch for the Patriots to play in those 9 Super Bowls in 19 seasons, right? It wasn't all done right away. As a matter of fact, it was 2 separate dynasties, right? I mean, it was Brady and Belichick were the only guys that carried over. I mean, certainly other coaches, but like Brady and his teammates between his 3rd and 4th Super Bowl, I mean, the roster attrition was significant. So, and that to me is sort of the challenge the Chiefs face going forward is that every year now, because of the strength of this roster and because you have players that have been paid, not just Patrick and Travis Kelce, but, guys like Creed Humphrey that now make a lot of money and deservingly so, and other Chris Jones making a ton of money, is the challenge is you just have to continue to be absolutely nails in the draft, and you have to do your best to make sure that the gap between now and the next Super Bowl is not, whatever, 5 years from now, right? That's really the challenge going forward. And I understand it sounds ridiculous talking about challenges when you basically run the league for nearly a decade, but is like right now the rest of the AFC, or at least the contenders, are saying to themselves, hey, we're in Buffalo, we're in Baltimore, we're in wherever else you think has a chance to be a credible contender next year, maybe even the AFC West. They're saying we're going to find a way to narrow the gap and prevent the Chiefs from keeping this rolling. If you're Kansas City, you don't have a whole lot of time to feel bad for yourself because, we're just weeks away from the NFL Combine, and the franchise tag window is just 8 days from right now.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are, while going through this postseason run, I mean, they're scouting at the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, and they've got, the Combine right around the corner, draft. I mean, it's never ending. And you're right. The emphasis comes on now the front office to figure things out. What do you think? Field Yates is our guest from ESPN. Given the history of this front office, they lose to the Bucs and they completely revamp their offensive line. They get Joe Thuney, trade for Orlando Brown, draft Creed Humphrey, draft Trey Smith. I mean, just a complete revamp of that offensive line. They lose to the Bengals, and they go out and restructure their defense and Justin Reed and bring in different guys in and let Tyrann Mathieu walk and things like that, and trade Tyreek Hill and revamp things that way. Those 3 losses. I guess I should point out 2018. They fire Bob Sutton, trade Frank Clark, sign Tyrann Mathieu. Like, they made big moves after each of the 3 previous losses in the postseason with Patrick Mahomes. Do you expect the same here? And what's the task and the job ahead for this front office to figure out what the next steps are for what could be phase 3 of the Mahomes era coming off this loss and some big decisions in the offseason?
A few thoughts there is, one, I remember hearing, I think it was either Ryan Poles or Mike Borgonzi, who, the 2 GMs now that started their career in Kansas City and worked under Brett Veach, talked about how, Brett taught them about the importance of never leaving a single stone unturned, right? So it's not going to be lack of effort that prevents the Chiefs from reaching whatever heights they believe they have available next season and beyond. I think it starts with identifying which players you either want to keep or reinvest in on this roster. I think a guy like Trent McDuffie is an obvious, let's make him a really highly paid cornerback candidate. George Karlaftis, same draft class. Like, you've got guys like that you want to take care of because they've earned it. And then it's also figuring out, it's going to be hard to keep all of Nick Bolton and Justin Reed and Trey Smith. Like, those guys are all going to make a lot of money if they reach the open market. It's going to be prioritizing 1 or maybe 2 of those types of players. And then I think from a salary cap structure standpoint, at times they have not been the most aggressive in terms of kicking the can down the road, right? But again, as they have more success and the number for Patrick in terms of his salary cap number goes up, maybe even faster in terms of percentage than the salary cap for the league goes up, they may have to be a little bit more aggressive with pushing money into future years to help retain some of these key players. So to me, it's always going to be focused in on the efforts that, the guys that are the most known quantities. I'd be surprised if there's staff shakeup unless I've missed something reporting wise. It doesn't sound like any major contributors along the coaching staff are on their way out here. So I think I understand, they've been audacious in the past. This might be a year in which, I think the offensive line will end up being the priority one way or the other, but I don't expect shocking moves. I wouldn't be surprised by bold moves.
Yeah, that's
There's sort of a fine line there between those two, but
right. Yes, and would it be shocking if the Chiefs trade up for a left tackle that's sitting there at 16 or 17, and they're like, yeah, we're at 31, and this guy shouldn't be there, so we're going to make the move now and trade some pieces that we're going to get this thing solidified, and we're going to forget our left tackle. Like, hey, Josh Simmons should not be sitting here at 19 or 20. Why is he? Why is he
the name I'd have in mind.
Yeah. Yep. Why is he at this spot? You know what? We're doing it. We're moving up, and we're going to go and grab this guy out of Ohio State, and he's going to be our left tackle for the next 10 years, like it was with Eric Fisher. And we're not going to have, because here's the thing, Field. If Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are fortunate to get back to the Super Bowl, it will be 6 for 6 in different starting left tackles in the Super Bowl for Patrick Mahomes. Because it was 5 for 5 with Joe Thuney, and he ain't going to be starting at left tackle the next time they're in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty confident about that. So if they get back to the Super Bowl, no matter what, it will be 6 Super Bowl appearances and 6 different starting left tackles for Patrick Mahomes. You'd like it to be that if he gets to 7, that would be maybe back-to-back of the same left tackle at some point.
Totally. Yeah, we're talking about continuity. Usually it's, the same quarterback, the same offensive coordinator, play caller, and, in this case, left tackle. I hadn't realized that it had been 6 for 6 prior. Sorry, 5 for 5 prior to this for Patrick.
Yep, craziness, because it was Eric Fisher, then it was Mike Remmers, then it was Orlando Brown, then it was Donovan Smith, and then it's Joe Thuney. So, I mean, just like...
I guess the only thing we can count on is change itself,
That's exactly right, yes. You know what? As long as there's a different left tackle next year, it means the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. That much we can all rely upon. A couple of quick ones for you. How set up are the Eagles to make a run that the Chiefs were able to do over this 3-year period? Are the Eagles now the threat to be a, Chiefs might be yesterday's newspaper and the Eagles might be the team that becomes the most hated over the next couple of years?
I think I'll start with like a 2-year window as opposed to a 3-year window, only because, we really haven't seen anybody, mean, the Chiefs, what they were trying to do yesterday was unprecedented. So I do think Philly is in a good spot to try to run it back next year, only because, they have, if you're just going to kind of go through the positions that you want to have locked up, quarterback, premier wide receiver, premier cornerbacks, premier pass rushers, premier pass protectors, like kind of check for Philadelphia. That they've obviously done a really good job at identifying those key needs and satisfying those needs as well. They have some key free agents. There's no two ways about that, right? They've got to figure out what to do with guys like Zach Bond, who had the interception last night, and Josh Sweat, who probably could have been a candidate or was a candidate for Super Bowl MVP, and Mekhi Becton, on the offensive line. They have a very good track record of not just being one step ahead in terms of filling needs, but also, finding ways to be resourceful. I know that we understandably pay a lot of attention to some of the big moves that the Eagles make, whether it's the signing of Saquon Barkley or trading of A.J. Brown. But, they've done a good job, and the Chiefs have done an excellent job at this. It's some of the stuff around the margins as well, right? It's guys like Zach Bond and Mekhi Becton, who you bring in as free agents. Well, there are guys, pro scouting is a real art, and there are a lot of players that aren't going to make a ton of money once, March, whatever it is, 12th rolls around, that are really impactful players. So, Philly, I think, is a deserving contender. Favorite's a strong word for me to use the day after the Super Bowl, but, certainly a team that's going to be around not just for next year, but for, a lot of years going forward. For as great as the Chiefs' 7-year run is, right, Phillies is, over the past decade, they've had an excellent run as well. So, you're really the two best teams when you stack, total team success over the past decade were the teams that met there yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Veach has done a great job, and Howie Roseman has absolutely done a great job. I mean, Jalen Carter, get him with the number 10 pick, and that, happens because you trade with New Orleans. You have a rough year. You trade Carson Wentz. You move up. New Orleans then moves up to trade with you. You get a first rounder the next year. Jalen Carter slides to you. You get that pick. Jordan Davis the year before. Then you get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper, and you trade up for then Cooper DeJean in the second round up to number 40 because you spotted him and said he shouldn't be there at number 40. Clearly, he shouldn't have been there at number 40. They've made some really good decisions in those free agent, picks as well. They've set themselves up in a pretty good spot, and you got to make those decisions. Now the Chiefs are going to have to be making those decisions in the draft because they got some guys. That 22 draft is starting to get paid, so you can't just rely on that one. All right, Field, one quick one. What does this do for Nick Sirianni's legacy, reputation around the league? He's now a Super Bowl winning coach and maybe not just a bumbling fool.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm a little bit. I've always been a bit biased towards a lot of the guys that were there with me when I got to Kansas City, and they've all had a ton of success. Nick, obviously left before the Super Bowl started in Kansas City, but some validation there for a guy who, I guess my stance on Nick is I understand why people get frustrated with the things like bickering with fans in the crowd. I get why that is something that people have an issue with, but as far as on-field coaching decisions, Nick was an aggressive coach who was willing to win with the sword and die by the sword if need be. And his validation was that Super Bowl victory last night.
Yeah.
I actually will say that I thought he maybe played a little more conservative than some cases we have seen him, in terms of kicking a couple of field goals, securing points once the game became a multi-score game. So, I think he has sort of established himself as one of those top-tier coaches in the NFL. And, legacy is one of those things that a lot of people will tell you it doesn't matter, at least not until they're far past the days of their coaching career. But I will tell you one thing that's going to change for Nick Sirianni. That wallet's about to get a lot thicker, as you know, and Adam Schefter reported on yesterday. The way that coaching salaries are surging, Nick Sirianni as a Super Bowl winning head coach is going to make a whole lot more money than some of the guys who are now first ever time head coaches in the NFL.
Yeah. All right, who wins next year, Field? We will write this down and hold you to it, and you cannot change next year at all. And if you say something different at the beginning of next year, we will scream at the top of the mountain that you're a hypocrite, and you're a flip-flopper, you're a waffler, you're riding the fence.
I'm going to go Ravens over the Eagles. I don't know. Usually I have such an easy way out. I just start with the Chiefs and figure it out from there, But
Ravens over Eagles.
Ravens over Eagles. I know that conversation's coming. I know the ESPN.com editors are going to send an email out in the next 20 minutes asking for our answer on that. So after we're done here, I'm going to go head over to the computer and start some research for 20 minutes. But, Oh, man, only 206 days till football. Not that I'm counting,
Yep.
but I can't wait.
And you know what? Today is the first day the Chiefs have woken up in 728 days without being Super Bowl champions. So 728
Put it that way.
days Chiefs fans have woken up as the reigning champions. Not too bad of a run. Field, you were the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. Had a great time this year. Had a blast. And looking forward to catching up periodically in the offseason and then another run next year.
I always do, my friend. Be well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate all you guys do there. And to listeners out there, appreciate you guys always tuning in as well. And before you know it, free agency will be here.
Yep.
In the meantime, we got some good college basketball to tide us over.
That's right. Field, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, Dave.
There's Field Yates. Fantastic stuff from him, as usual. Great season there with Field. Chiefs go back to the Super Bowl. Eagles win, as we know that, 40-22. And we're going to be talking about free agency. We're going to talk about draft season. It's going to be combine season. We're going to be watching different things take place. And, there'll be studying of tackles and if the Chiefs make a bold move. And as he said, he described it as the difference between not shocking but maybe bold. To where, okay, if the Chiefs, and the name I brought up at that point, and we'll get very familiar with these names, but Josh Simmons from Ohio State is a guy that's like mid-first round. If some reason, like McDuffie wasn't supposed to be there at 21, and the Chiefs moved up and got him. They had 2 first-rounders. They had all those picks from Tyreek. Are they in a position where they can spend extra draft resources when you're starting to pay more guys, and you got to be right more often than not? But if a guy like Josh Simmons is there at number 20 and like, this guy shouldn't be at number 20, we're going to move from 31 to 20 and give up picks to go get this guy. And he goes, well, that's the exact name I was thinking of. That would be bold, but not shocking if they did that. We'll see.
There's also a potential ring-chasing veteran left tackle out of San Francisco that is a free agent named Trent Williams. So if you're willing to maybe a 1-year, 2-year with him.
I am Williams.
We were when he was leaving Washington.
Yeah.
Is everyone just done with Kingsley? Because I do think.
Oh, yeah, Kingsley. Yeah, I think you're.
He's a guard.
Honestly,
all right.
I think you figure out who fills the spot for Trey Smith.
Right.
Joe Tooney's at left guard. You can't pay Trey Smith. Not after watching last night. You can't pay Trey Smith.
Bears will.
So, and I hope he gets the bag. He's been playing on a 6-round contract for 4 years. Good for him, man.
I really think the Bears will.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he kept getting asked about the Bears at opening night. Like people from Chicago kept asking about the Bears. And Ryan Poles is there in Chicago, and they've got money, and they need to protect
well, not
Caleb
that
Williams.
way. It was the Bears.
The Bears, sorry.
Yeah.
The Bears. Trey Smith. The Bears. Who are you going to sign with, Trey? The Bears.
I'm not 100% ready to give up on Kingsley just yet because I've always said.
You have always said it since you were 5.
Since about 5 or 6. I was
tyke.
I was a tyke. I was just a little tot, and I said.
Little tater tot.
I was speaking words of wisdom on top of the kind of laying in the hamper of clothes because
speaking words of
Are we
wisdom.
doing
Let
like
it
the Sid from Toy Story dropping of Wanya Morris now to Kingsley here, Sterling? Is it?
Let it be.
Are you the Wanya Morris president of the fan club now from?
I
My bad, Wanya to Kingsley now.
I was the Wanya fan club. I started it.
Yeah, you did.
I just think it takes so long.
That was when you were a boy. Now you're a man.
Now I'm a man. Motown Philly back again.
I think they will. I think Kingsley and Wanya will figure out who the right guard is.
Sure,
between those guys.
And I think Wanya fits really well as the swing tackle, or at least the backup offensive, the Andrew Wiley, if you will, of the team. But what it comes down to me is it takes tackles at least a year, unless you are a top 5, can't miss prospect. Even then, sometimes it takes a year for those guys to figure it out. And so I am not 100% ready to give up on Kingsley yet. Do I think he's going to be the starting left tackle for the future? Maybe not, but I do think there's at least a little bit of hope left. Andrew Thomas, I always go back to for the Giants, was atrocious his rookie year. I'm talking just a dumpster fire at left tackle. Giants fans wanted him gone. Massive bust. And then Andrew Thomas ended up being really good. Now higher draft pick, all that stuff I get. I'm just not quite ready to completely give up on Kingsley Suamataia just yet.
We'll see what happens with that.
I'm not saying you don't have a contingency plan or a backup plan in place.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think that we might be giving up a little too early on Kingsley after all the hype and offseason talk.
I'll say this. They ain't going into training camp thinking Kingsley is their starting left tackle. Okay. If they're saying Kingsley could be a tackle,
sure,
that's fine. But he ain't their starting left tackle going into training camp like we were talking about Wanya and Kingsley, or if they signed Donovan Smith or somebody else last year. They went into week 1 with Kingsley as their starting left tackle. That ain't happening this year. They'll have somebody that they feel more confident in. I am confident in that will be the left tackle. And they'll be able to look at Kingsley and Wanya and say, will one of these guys be able to replace Trey Smith? Because, again, you're not going to be able to sign Trent McDuffie or George Karlaftis or some other guys, or maybe even Justin Reed. That's not typically a guy they would sign. And he even tweeted out last night, if this is the end, thank you, Chiefs Kingdom. Thank you, Kansas City, for embracing me and my family, and absolutely loved it here and loved every moment. And, hopefully it's not the end. But if it is, it might be the end for Justin Reed. They've got some big decisions to make. Nick Bolton, guys that are big parts of this defense. If Bolton and Justin Reed leave, that's a brain drain on the guys who are on the field, putting everybody in the right spot that's supposed to be there, that knows Spags defense inside and out. You got to figure out what you do with that part of it, and what you do at guard if Trey Smith isn't there, because it ain't Caliendo. That ain't the answer right now. And so you've got some bigger decisions to make. What do you do at running back as well? I mean, do you just rely on Isaiah Pacheco again, or it's Kareem Hunt, or do you go draft one? There are some huge decisions to make in this offseason for this front office, and they don't exactly have a ton of cash and, cap to work with. They can create some of that with Patrick Mahomes' contract. We know that, but they've got to be right on these decisions. And I don't think they can pay Trey Smith and try to fill all these other holes with $20 million, $22 million going to a guard.
Yeah.
Just can't happen. I think he was fine last night against Jalen Carter. He was. But the offensive line overall was an issue for some reason. And whether that's Andy Heck or Andy Reid, I don't know. But we look at individually like, oh, these guys are talented. Creed Humphrey's the best center. Joe Tooney does this. Trey Smith does that. Jawan Taylor, has talent. No, but them together as a unit, for some reason, it never felt like it ever clicked or meshed. And maybe that was just because of the revolving left guard, left tackle part of it, and it affected everybody else. I don't know. Could be. That puts even more emphasis on figuring that left tackle out, if that's the thing that is throwing the whole thing into a mix, the whole thing into a blender because of the left tackle spot. Well, then figure the left tackle spot out and fill the right guard spot. Don't overpay right guard, and then we'll figure out left tackle later. No. Left tackle priority, right guard filler. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer on the phone. A little Learn Funniest Best coming up in the next hour.
By the way, I missed you guys.
Oh, I missed you. What's that? Why?
I didn't. Well, I saw you all the time down on Radio Row, but
Right.
I didn't really get a chance to.
We were doing shows.
Didn't get a chance to work.
15 feet apart.
Dog, I was working hard down there.
That
was a cheap shot.
You're talking sports.
Dylan.
That was
We're talking sports. Okay.
misleading journalism there.
Yes, that's right.
It was fun.
This wasn't working for us.
Our booths were right next to each other,
like 10 feet apart.
It was great. I got to see my guy, and
we got to interact a lot off the air.
Off the air, but no one got. So for anyone who had questions, like where I saw some Twitter messages like, "Where's Sterling? What happened to him?"
Yeah, is he okay?
Already,
he's fine.
And I'm fine. I'm actually looking at Jason. I can hear him talk.
Yeah, right. I got to interact with a lot of people. Sterling, Max Crosby, Keegan-Michael Key, Eli. Just random people that you would talk with and interact with where our booth was located. So
it was
got
lovely.
a lot of hanging out to do with them.
I didn't miss you. And,
I don't believe you.
And Dylan. I did. I
don't believe you.
No, I did miss you guys. It was fun.
Again, not believing.
Why
you.
would I lie to you? I have no reason to bring that. I brought this. You didn't bring it up and told me to force me to say it.
That's true. All right, let's hear from Patrick Mahomes. This is clip number 3. He was, assessing his performance and how he played in the Super Bowl.
I thought our team played really well. I feel like I didn't play to my standard, just with especially the struggles that I had early in the season. And so there's things that I have to get better at, and they kind of showed today on the biggest stage. And so I'm about to find a way this offseason to combat what defenses are doing to me as far as rush lanes and different coverages that they're playing. And that's the beauty of football, is that you never can be satisfied with just going out there and playing and thinking you're going to have success year in and year out. These defenses are going to continue to get better and better, and so I have to get better. And so I take a lot of ownership in that, and I want to hopefully come back and play better football this next season.
I do wonder what happens this offseason with Patrick Mahomes, how much this is fuel, drive to become better. He lost his first playoff game, then won a Super Bowl the next year, lost to the Bucs, then lost to the Bengals and played just a really bad second half against the Bengals, and then won 9 straight playoff games after that and 2 Super Bowls, and went back to another Super Bowl, and then had a rough game against the Eagles. And it's like, against the Bengals, it was the first time in his career that you said, boy, the Chiefs aren't playing anymore. And Mahomes had a decent hand in that. That was after the Bengals game. This is now the second time in his career where you go, the Chiefs season is over, and Mahomes had a pretty decent hand in it because he just wasn't his typical self in that particular moment. And how does he, go into the offseason and adjust and build from that? Do they go on another 8-9 game winning streak in the postseason? That'd be pretty badass if they did. Don't know.
What I find, I just thought of this, by the way. Remember when Patrick said he didn't know how to really read defenses early on in his career?
Yeah.
Is he overthinking? Again, it's hard to say because they just came off back-to-back Super Bowl victories, right? So, and this is the 3rd straight appearance. So, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but at times last night, he looked like he was overthinking.
Or not trusting his eyes at times.
Maybe that's the word. Not trusting his instincts. Because when he came into the NFL, he had the best instincts I think anyone had ever seen.
Yeah, so good.
And he talked about how he was going to try and do more. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but at times last night it did feel like he wasn't trusting himself. Does he need to go back to almost trusting those instincts and stop overthinking? I don't know if you feel a certain way or not, but I just thought of that, and
I think
it's interesting to talk about.
Because against the Bills, like, he did what he needed to do. Got the ball out quick, found the open guys, accurate, on time, had a great feel for the game, knew when the pocket was breaking down to scramble, get out to run, to pick up the first downs, stayed in the pocket when it was there. He wasn't pressured nearly as much in that game as he was. Like, it felt like the pocket was breaking down at certain times early on. But I also didn't think he looked incredibly comfortable early on either. The pass to Kelsey on the first drive was behind him. DeAndre Hopkins before half, it could have been a better pass. But here's the thing. You understand how many times Mahomes has bailed this team out? Mahomes has bailed out his receivers that couldn't catch and had to make up for it. He needed somebody to help him along the way. Kelsey could have made that catch on 2nd and 9 on the first drive. And if he does, you're in a rhythm. It's another first down. Maybe you start, it was second, boom. First down, you picked up 11 yards. Second down, a little 1 yard dump off to Worthy, whatever. Second, that was first down. Second down and 9, boom, hits Kelsey for 12 yards. Moving the chains. Here we go. Now we're in a rhythm. Now we can hand it off to Kareem Hunt. Okay, we got 6 yards there. All right, now we hand it off to Pacheco. All right, we got another 5. First down. Now we're rolling. All right, we're going to get them to not just keep playing cover 4 and deep. We're going to go and score just as we did against the Bills when we got the ball first. 9 plays, 90 yards, boom, let's do it again. But he didn't look comfortable early on. And then Kelsey drops the ball. And then 3rd and 9, he's got to scramble around. And Jalen Carter's pretty fast. And Mahomes couldn't get around the corner. And Trey Smith was just a touch late in trying to get the block on Jalen Carter, or Mahomes could have turned the corner. And he couldn't get enough on the pass to Hollywood Brown and still somehow made it to where it was kind of close, to where Hollywood Brown almost caught the damn thing. And then the next drive, again, didn't look particularly comfortable. And on 3rd and 3, in that next drive, what do we see Patrick Mahomes do on 3rd down all the time in the postseason and in the Super Bowl? He'll tuck it and run. He sees a lane, and boom, 3rd down. My job is just to pick up the first down here, no matter what, move the chains. And he saw a seam and went through an open gap, and he had, 15, 20 yards of space to run. And he decides to plant his left foot and sort of dive towards Hollywood Brown and flip it like a basketball, and it goes 5 yards over. It goes over his head. He barely, Hollywood Brown can't get a hand on it. And
Wilt Chamberlain could not get a hand on that ball.
It was like, it was incomplete. It was like Mahomes always runs that. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just decided to stop and just throw it. Like, no, I'm not going to run it now. I'll run it at times, but I don't want to be self. Like, I got to move the ball around, right there. I got to get to Hollywood. I got to. Right. At first, I thought Nolan Smith grabbed him, like, and tripped him up, and he just had to dive and do that. Then you watch the close-up, and it's like, well, Nolan Smith missed him. Yeah. And Mahomes just simply planted his left leg and dove, for whatever reason, towards Hollywood Brown. It was odd. Like, we don't see him make some of those decisions. And that's what I'm saying. Early on, it didn't look like he felt all that comfortable. But he also could have had somebody help him out. He could have had his coach help him out and hand the ball off a couple of more times. He could have had the offensive line help him out and give him time to where it's just sit back there and find the open guy. We're going to block our asses off here, and you're not going to have anybody touch you on this drive. Like, somebody could step up and help him out when he wasn't comfortable early on to get him in a groove.
100% with you on the play calling, too, but couldn't he help himself out?
Yes.
A lot of times you have an alert or a second play, and I'm sure it's maybe even a run play that he could have maybe audibled into, checked into.
Yeah, maybe. Or scripted
maybe
first
not.
15,
maybe
you stay
not.
with what's there. Because if you're calling plays to combat a team that's going to be playing cover 4 and not blitzing, well, guess what? You get up there and say, they're playing cover 4, and I don't see any indicators for a blitz. We're in the right play.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to, switch to a man beater when, 60% of the time, like the most cover 4 a team has played this year. 60% of the time they were in the same defense and not blitzing. Like Vic Fangio just said, here's what we're doing. I'm showing you the cards. I still don't think you can beat us.
And they had the horses. That's what it came down to, too.
They just simply won. At the line of scrimmage, they dominated both sides. They dominated the line of scrimmage in terms of pass blocking. Run blocking, the Chiefs were run defense, Chiefs were fantastic.
Incredible. But
they couldn't get after Jalen Hurts. And the couple of times that they did, they pressured him, and, he threw an interception and threw a couple of other incomplete passes. Threw one that was off the mark to Dallas Goedert on 3rd down. But Trent McDuffie, bad timing, jumped up for Dallas Goedert, in the air, turned away so he didn't hit Goedert. Goedert flops. It happens. It's the NFL. Whatever. Got a bad call. Okay. The previous drive, maybe that was a bad call too on Trent McDuffie. But it's also tough for McDuffie to try to make a play on the ball when the guy's pushing his face mask away. So whatever. And that looked like McDuffie live looked like, oh my God, what are you doing, Trent? You can't hit him that high. Come on, dude, you're going to get a flag. Especially it's the Chiefs. They're going to go out of their way to make sure. I think the refs are going to go out of their way to make sure that we're not just going to let that fly. We just gave them a offensive pass interference, the previous one. Oh, no. We're not going to let that fly.
It felt like a
flag.
make-up call. It really
100%.
felt like we gave the Chiefs one call that was 50-50.
We're not going to hear about
Let's
this.
give
no,
the
we're
Eagles
gonna,
one.
We're definitely
Yeah.
calling that. Okay, that's fine, but you got to overcome those things. And so, yeah, Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. You'd hope that he could sort of find his rhythm on his own, but he wasn't. You've got to read what's going on. Andy, the offensive line, the wide receivers, somebody help him get in a rhythm. Because once he does, then now I'm going to trust my eyes. All right, I'm comfortable. I'm going to trust my eyes. I'm going to trust my feet, and I'm not going to immediately take the snap and first read isn't there, and now my feet are moving around. I'm not letting the play develop. All right, a couple of times that he let the play develop, he was hitting open guys. Right, boom, right there, move the ball. The long pass to Xavier Worthy, not the touchdown, the one that was up the right seam on the right hash mark between the safety or deep corner safety, whatever it was, right between the two guys, through a laser. Just a frozen rope right to Xavier Worthy. It was great. Sat in the pocket, read it, stepped up, footwork, boom, on target. I mean, 18, 19, 20 just sort of felt like a whole lot more of that than what we've seen lately. And it feels like lately there should be more of that because you kind of know what the defense is doing with running some of these zones. And here's where the space is going to be. Here, timing, get rid of the ball, on time, accurate, boom, let's move the chains. It just wasn't last night. I just think he didn't look comfortable last night for whatever reason. Those things happen. They're human. It's not a series. It's a one-game sample. You have a bad night, you're done. Baseball, you have a bad night, you come back the next night. NBA, you have a bad night, you come back a couple nights later or 3 nights later, depending on if it's travel or not. You get another shot at it. NFL, you have a bad night, you're done. And that goes on your record forever. Forever. Okay? You don't get to come back in Game 6 and push off on Byron Russell. I'm joking. Boy, imagine if Twitter was around at that point, huh? Imagine if Twitter was around for the Patriots dynasty. They'd be talking about Gates and stuff. And oh, yeah, they did. But maybe they didn't now. Patriots were a very likable dynasty. Chiefs, so hateable. Ugh, that pop star girlfriend and high school sweetheart, wife, was very excited about rooting for her husband, investing in women's sports, and gross with nuggies.
Patriots had the Gates. The Chiefs has Gates barbecue. That's it.
I like that one. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer. He is traveling back from New Orleans right now. We'll see what he was doing this weekend. What do you think he was doing? I never know what he's doing. Ma, the meatloaf. I don't know what he's doing.
Probably went to Caesars.
Never know what he's doing. I actually was a little bummed to not stay this year in New Orleans because a lot of times, at least the last few, Tampa Bay I was ready to get home because obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nobody really there. LA I was ready to get home because I didn't want to stand there at the convention center with Cincy and LA in the Super Bowl and Solomon Wilcott's walking around. So I wanted to leave on Friday. And then,
why did Solomon
doesn't matter.
Wilcott?
Doesn't matter. Thank you for listening. Phoenix, a couple of years ago, I was ready to get back, And so, like, this one, though, it's like, man, I kind of want to stay because I wanted to do a little bit more around the city on Saturday.
Yeah.
Check some things out because I've been there a couple times, but, like, no, like, free day or two to where it's like, all right, let me just go around and check things out. Go to the World War II Museum,
Yeah.
I think Toad LeBeau and Matt Derrick and maybe some others did some sightseeing, some tourist stuff on Saturday. I'm like, I've been really enjoying this week, New Orleans. Like some of the trips are like, all right, I'm just going to the convention center, do the job, head back to the hotel, right? But I really enjoyed it there. So we'll see what Mick Schaefer was doing. Why was he in New Orleans to begin with? Like, what is even going on down there? Because
he had no idea.
I don't know what
business trip.
Nothing took place yesterday for me. I mean, there was a big game. It was my son's basketball game. That was a huge, and my daughter played basketball yesterday. Two big games that happened. And then after my son's game was over, there was nothing else on the docket for us. We played some Yahtzee, some Uno, watched some movies, paid the bills, fed the hog, had homework.
I just kept watching reruns of The Floor.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because I know that the season premiere was that night.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was the big talking point, right? Was The Floor?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Sazerac House was cool. I did a couple, Sazerac House. Was it Jackson Square? Cafe du Monde. I did as much. I didn't sleep. I just kind of kept exploring the city.
Family and I were all sitting around singing some tunes in A minor a lot yesterday for no reason. You know what I mean? That's what we did. Wonder what Joseph did. post Super Bowl. Chiefs lose Super Bowl 59. Wrap up a phenomenal 7-year stretch. We'll see if they can carry that into 8 years. 7 consecutive AFC Championship games, 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, the only team to ever do that. 3 consecutive Super Bowls, winning the first 2 and going back for a three-peat, the first team to ever do that. Most playoff wins over a 7-year stretch of any team in NFL history. By 3. Got into a conversation with somebody on Radio Row. Was talking about that stat as to why, the Chiefs compared to the dynasty. And I'm like, well, these 7 years, we've got the most wins in NFL history for playoffs. And he's like, oh, that's a homer stat. I'm like, why is that a homer stat? Well, the Patriots, they had they had a bye week every year, so they had less opportunities. So we figured out Chiefs had 17 wins in 7 years. In the 8-year stretch of the Patriots going to the AFC Championship game every year, had 16 wins in 8 years. But they had the bye week every year. The Chiefs over the 7 years have played 2 wild card games. So you say, okay, well, they had 2 more opportunities. Right, but it was also 7 years compared to 8. So 2011 to 17 for the Patriots, they won 14 games. 2012 to 2018, that 7-year stretch, they won 13 games. So even if you add in the 2 wild card games the Chiefs played, it's still 3 and 4 games more with only 2 extra games that they got to play. And also, it's not exactly a great argument to say, hold on, they've got all these wins in the postseason. I'm sort of going to diminish their 7-year run because it was harder to get there?
Yeah.
Because they had to play in the wild card twice?
That's a wild argument.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the stretch the Chiefs are on. Did not go the way that certainly they wanted last night. Rough one all the way around. I shouldn't say all the way around because defense, I think, held their own.
Tershawn Wharton was the MVP.
Your MVP?
Tershawn Wharton.
They named Jalen Hurts. You voted for Turk Wharton.
I voted for Turk Wharton.
That's odd. It's weird that the defense for the Eagles did not get the MVP, but your MVP goes to Turk Wharton.
I thought Turk was incredible.
That's great. I probably would have voted for Josh Sweat, or I could have just put Eagles D-line. Sorry. Who do you vote for? Eagles D-line. And if there's not a player named Eagles D-line, then I guess my vote goes to nobody. Let's bring in Mick Schaefer. Mick, what's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up, boys?
Where you at?
We're in Arkansas, I think, somewhere.
Be careful.
2-lane roads. I don't think they've got 4 lanes in Arkansas yet.
We're in Arkansas somewhere yet.
I don't know. What town? What town would we be here in Arkansas? We'll just call it Sterling Holmes, Arkansas.
It's a
nice place.
Winchesterton Fieldville, Arkansas.
That's exactly. Dollar General, Arkansas.
I love
Calipari, Arkansas. Why not?
Why? Because it makes sense to have just a Dollar General next to another Dollar General.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's when you know you've made it as a town.
Yeah. Well, I started out with a $2 General, and then the punks came in with a $1 General and knocked me right out of business. So even though their stuff was just as expensive as mine was, there's plenty of things in their store for $2, but it didn't matter. It's advertising, man.
The prices these days, is like $1.05 General.
That's what freedom costs.
What freedom costs.
And if you don't put in your $1.05, who will? That's what I'm saying.
It's great.
You know exactly what we're talking about. I'm picking up what you're putting down there, Mick. All right, Mick, your reaction. You were there last night at the game. Started off well. The Chiefs won the coin toss, so that was good. So I feel like it evens out. The Eagles won the game. Chiefs won the coin toss. Isn't that 1-1? Solomon Wilcots would say that's 1-1. That's an even 1-1. So the Chiefs get the coin toss. They get off the field, and they get the ball back, and no points on the board. Boy, that's as well as you can start. And then that sort of ended it. So what'd you see last night, Mick?
Well, that first play was a first down, right?
That's right. Yeah, you're right. So the first play, they win the coin toss, defer, Eagles punt, first play, first down, 11 yards, rolling.
I was, even after the Cooper DeJean pick 6, I was like, okay, this is danger zone here. But it's the NFL and it's the Chiefs. And you're like, there's always a pushback. When a game's teetering on a blowout, there's always a pushback. There's always a letdown from the leading team. And then, you get the team that's trailing to kind of, pull up the bootstraps and here we go. it didn't happen. And what a disastrous last several minutes of the first half, which at that point just ended the game. And so, the 3-play stretch of sack, pick six, I was like, that's the worst 3-play stretch of Mahomes' career. And then it got bigger. Okay, that's the worst half of Mahomes' career, worst game. And so we were all just kind of in shock at what happened. It wasn't just the offense, too. The defense played better, obviously. Weren't set up in great positions a lot. We're back on the field very quickly most of the time. But I thought Travis Kelce said it best last night when he was like, they just came at us from all three phases and dominated the ball game.
Yeah, looking back, I know there's a comparison to the Chiefs and Bucks Super Bowl from last night, and mainly it's because of the pressure that the Bucks put on Patrick Mahomes, and I think there was different types of pressure from that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game and the Eagles game last night, but that game against the Bucks was like it was a play away from being, 17-6 at halftime, but they get the touchdown. Yeah. It's 21-6.
That got out of hand late.
Yeah, late in the third quarter, because the Chiefs were down 21-9. They had some opportunities. They had the drop pass by Tyreek Hill on the first drive. They settled for a field goal. The drop pass by Darrell Williams, I think, ended up being a field goal. So it's like, there's a couple of, there's 8 points that might have been put on the board if guys just catch the ball. But I mean, it was 21-9. With 10 minutes to go or 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, you're down by 12 points, and that felt like it was a huge hill and mountain to climb to overcome. And then Fournette picked up a 30-yard run, and then they kicked the field goal, and it was 31-9, and the Chiefs didn't do anything after that. But this was one to where it felt like, hindsight being 2020 allows us to do this, Mick, but looking back at 10-0, it felt like, man, you better do something now or this game's going to slip away. And then the pick six happened. And then it's like, boy, you better do something now or this game's going to slip away. And then the interception happened. And it's 24-0. And you're like, well, this game slipped away. Maybe it wasn't slipping away at 10-0 or 17-0. Maybe if you just simply got back into your game and maybe calmed everybody down and got back into a game plan, you could have slowed some of the momentum from the Eagles, but it felt like, even at home watching, like they better do something quicker. This game's going to slip away. And it's like, well, actually, it wasn't slipping away until you sort of played like you needed to have a 21-point play each time you were out there.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they'll let you know if they're going to lose the Super Bowl. I mean, they're not going to leave anything to chance there. If it's close, they're going to win, and if
Good
they're
point.
not, it's going to be very, very apparent. It's easier to take when they lose the Super Bowl because you prep for it for a good hour or two here, the two times it happens, and honestly, it kind of makes you appreciate the three they've won.
Yeah,
because all three of those could have gone the other way, and so. You keep getting there, right? And you gotta make a Super Bowl to win one. And when you do, sometimes you lose. But that's just how it goes. I thought Kevin and I, we were on the field last night. We tried to kind of bring that air to the broadcast of like big picture. And I get it. The Chiefs and Chiefs fans at that time aren't looking big picture. You're concentrated on what a dud of a game that was. But we were like, okay, I feel like a lot of people online were treating it like it's a funeral, like it's the end of something. And now we're like, no, this is a continuance of something. They played 20 games this year. They won 17 of them. They got to another Super Bowl. This is part of the run. The run is still going. It hasn't ended just because they didn't win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Heard you guys talking earlier. I mean, 4 years ago, they lost a Super Bowl to the Buccaneers almost just as bad. And at that time, they only had one Super Bowl under their belt in this run. And they responded with a great season in 21, and fluky stuff had to happen for them not to get back to a Super Bowl. But that Bengals loss was the only one out of about, 12 games. I think they went something like 11-1 after that Bengals or the Bucks loss until last night. And inside of that was two Super Bowls. So it's motivating. I mean, here's the deal. It's a big chess match, right? The NFL and the Eagles found something to slow down Mahomes, to stop Mahomes, and stop the Chiefs. and now it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' move, and they'll make the next adjustment. I love the sound that you played earlier on Mahomes talking about, like, look, the rush lanes they're creating, the type of zone they're playing. I've got to figure out a way to beat that and to get them into the coverages I want them in, to get us in the down and distance I want it in, and then we'll find more success. And both those guys, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, are probably right back at it, trying to figure things out. Like, okay, we need to adjust to the move that the defenses are making against us now, because that's what defensive coordinators do all summer long. Is, okay, how do we beat the Chiefs? And the Eagles found a way last night. Dominating one.
One of the things that I'll be curious about going into the offseason, I know Patrick Mahomes said they forced me to be a fundamental quarterback in the pocket, and that's something I need to improve upon. But even with that, of forcing him to sort of play in the pocket, it's not like, hey, we're going to rush 3 and just stalk him, and he's not going to just stand in the pocket even with no pressure and then find the receiver. Well, no, they were still, like, they wanted him to be a pocket passer, but they were still rushing. They were putting some pressure on him. I know that he ran into some pressures and ran into some sacks, but there were others where he was just running for his life because he had to, because the offensive line was giving up pressures to the Eagles. So it's not like, I know what he was saying, and they're playing, cover 4 60% of the time and not blitzing. So they're saying, hey, we're going to bring 4 and make you figure out where we've got 7 guys back here in the secondary to stop all this quick stuff and to make sure we put a lid over the top of you getting these big plays. But I do wonder, like, okay, so how do you defeat that? Well, you successfully run the ball. That's how you would defeat that. You certainly don't go 12 of your first 13 plays saying we'll just pass, and it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. And if that means, well, should you have run the ball more last night? I don't know. Maybe the runs would have been stopped as well. But I do wonder moving forward, like, okay, so if Trey Smith is moving on, or who's at left guard, Joe Tooney, who's at left tackle, is there an emphasis on the run game of some way, shape, or form? I would have liked for them to kick the tires on Saquon Barkley last year. I mean, we talked about it on the air of, like, hey, do you pay for running backs? It's like, well, I feel like the pendulum has swung so far the other way that Barkley now becomes a bargain, and he's now valuable at the price that you're paying him. And Barkley on the field didn't do much numbers-wise, but made the Chiefs focus on him so much that there were so many one-on-ones and ways for Jalen Hurts to exploit it, and different ways to where the offensive line was protecting Jalen Hurts when there was so much emphasis on, hey, they'll run it on second down, they'll run it on third down, they'll run it any down with Saquon Barkley, and you cannot allow this guy to break a big 60 or 70-yarder. I mean, he changed a lot for that Eagles, and that's a running back. Not saying they go out and overpay for a running back, but I do wonder, like, hey, if you could run the football successfully, yeah, that's how you can get them out of them just playing back and saying, we're going to force you to play everything underneath. Okay, great. 8, 9 yards, 10 yards, cool, until they get out of that. But Chiefs don't really stay committed to that, and not necessarily built to even do that.
I think, like, 2 things we saw throughout the season kind of reared their ugly heads last night. One was we would go every game, and there would seemingly be a stretch where it was like Andy Reid forgot that running the ball was an option, right? The Chiefs would be up, and he wouldn't do it. You would have Kareem Hunt or Pacheco or whoever. They're getting 5 or 6 yards a clip, and they would go 10 plays with no runs. So that happened, and then also just the timing of Mahomes. I mean, I remember I talked about on the show quite a bit this year. I mean, just holding on to the ball too long, surveying the defense too long, and you rarely get that, okay, 5-step drop, I'm hitting my back foot, ball's out, right? That timing is almost like, okay, the secondary route for all these guys is what he's looking for, the exact right play, when in large part, a lot of times, just hitting the route in time, hitting your back foot, getting the ball out might be better for the offense. I certainly think that happened last night. I think you go to the offense into the offseason, and you're looking for offensive line pieces, defensive line pieces, like you always are. I mean, that's why half the first round every year are those positions. But I mean, I've seen the Chiefs' offensive line play worse than they have last night, and Mahomes still find a way to excel. And he didn't. And in fact, I mean, it was the first 9 drives, 7 punts, 2 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown. Just an awful, brutal stretch of football that I'm still trying to get my head around as I pop Dramamine with a Red Bull here in the hills of Arkansas.
Dramamine and Red Bull, yeah, that's one of the best combos you can have.
What was worse, Mick,
that
that game by the Chiefs or your hangover after drinking the hand grenade on Bourbon Street?
Hangover.
Well, unlike you, Sterling, I don't get a hangover after one drink. So
it's pretty sugary. Sorry, it's pretty sugary.
Very sugary.
Yeah.
It did take one.
You get a hangover after a snow
there's a lot
cone?
of ice in it. I feel like they shorted us. How much were those hand grenades? Like $12. Yeah, it's only $12.
They weren't bad. Go to Vegas, and then you come back with a $33 one. You're like, well, no, come on. Can I get a refund?
Well, they were green like every other thing down there. There's so many Philly fans. I bet it was 80-20.
Go Birds.
In the stands, maybe it wasn't like that. But
I don't know. It sounded like 65-35 or 70-30. I don't know what it looked like for you being there, but it sounded about 70-30 to me.
And what sucks is the Eagles.
When I sat down and saw the Chiefs fans in the stands, I was relieved because all week long it was 80-20 and maybe worse. I mean, you would see 10 to 12 Eagles fans, and there's a couple of Chiefs fans. Okay, here's 50 more Eagles fans, and they're all over the place.
And anyone neutral was going Eagles too,
Yeah.
so it's almost like anyone that was just there for the game is going to eventually migrate to the Eagles side.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are so hated because of their success. They've turned the Philadelphia Eagles into America's lovable team that just rooting for the old upstart team.
Yeah, America will love the Eagles for about 6 minutes.
I was wondering if people woke up this morning and was like, I was cheering for the Eagles
gross?
last night.
They're like,
gross.
They're making
cheer for the Eagles.
They're making the walk of shame from their rooting interest on the couch to then work today. The walk of shame of like, ooh, did I sleep with the Eagles last night? Oh no.
City of Philly burns as the city of Philly has cars just torched.
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, they were the only one left at the bar.
Mick, serious question here for you because I think that's a really good point you brought up with those 3-step drops, and at times Mahomes was looking too far down the field or at least not even taking what was there, trying to do too much. I brought this up earlier on. Remember a few years ago when he was like, I don't even know how to read defenses really. I just go out there and play. And we're all like, this is absurd.
I think he said, I still have a long way to go.
I know.
To read
I'm oversimplifying this here.
I don't even know how to throw a football yet.
But my point is, it was his instincts that really took over, and we had not witnessed anything like Patrick before. But in this game in particular, it really felt like he was overthinking or trying to do too much and not letting his incredible instincts take over. I don't know your thoughts here, but that's almost what I witnessed is he was trying to be too precise, too fine, instead of being like, hey, I'm the best damn quarterback on the planet. I just need to be me.
Yeah. I think there is something to the you don't know what you don't know. And we see that a lot with rookie quarterbacks in the league. They'll come in, and they're unpredictable. And so that makes it harder for them to defend because they don't know what the defense is trying to get them into. And it'll often result in something good. And we see that with, C.J. Stroud last year. But then what happens? He comes back in year 2. All right, defense caught up to you a little bit. And now year 7 in for Mahomes, he's got so much on tape, and everything's been tried against him, and it's worked or it's failed, and it's mostly failed to where, maybe there's some overthinking there. I think certainly a lot of times, especially when you're a great player like him and Kelsey, these guys, just maybe simplifying it. You're like, okay, I'm better than you. I'm going to go win this matchup right here, as opposed to like, wait, okay, I gotta be in this, I gotta be able to read his mind and know exactly what he's wanting to do and find the crease in the zone and all that stuff, when in fact, okay, just go run your route and throw it. And so I think there's something there, but again, taking a step back, they won 17 out of 20 games this year. They were dominant in the season. And one of those games weren't even trying to win. It just happens sometimes when you get to the Super Bowl. Things don't go your way, but you just just keep getting there over and over again. And it's so fun. I mean, Patriots fans are like now on the Eagles side too.
Yeah.
They're like, never compare Mahomes to Brady again. And we're like,
Emmett Smith was
he
on the
lost
Eagles
twice to
side.
Eli Manning. What are we doing here?
Well, I
We
mean,
went 10 years between Super Bowls.
right, but
and-
this stupid LeBron conversation about getting to the Super Bowl and losing tarnishes your legacy, as opposed to if he would have had the game he played against the Eagles. If he played like that against the Bills, they would have lost that game and then not lost to the Eagles. So therefore, that performance would have been in the postseason, in the playoffs, not the Super Bowl, where Brady has had some bad performances in the playoffs, and has lost to Jay Cutler, and has lost in the wild card by 3 touchdowns, and has lost to Eli in Super Bowls, and has lost to Mark Sanchez, and has lost to Flacco, and lost to a number of guys along the way. That somehow LeBron getting to 10 finals and carrying a team and playing phenomenal basketball to get there, but losing tarnishes his legacy. If he would just lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's now happening with Mahomes, as if like, well, he's 3-2. If he were 3-0, if he didn't get that team to the Super Bowl against the Bills in 2020, and then this year, and he was 3-0, he'd have a much better legacy than being a quarterback of a team that went to 5 out of 6 Super Bowls and had a chance to three-peat, but they had a bad night in that last moment, the last one they had to tick off the board to get to the first thing that ever happened. They played a bad game. He was not on his game, and that then tarnishes the legacy from being 17-3 before that?
Yeah, I mean, look, in the
absurd.
moment, every loss is going to seem like it's a failure, right? Even in the Super Bowl. What do we see with Andy Reid all those years in Philly? He got to 1 Super Bowl. I mean, he got to, 6 NFC Championship games, and people made fun of him for it. Oh, my God, can't get past the NFC Championship game. And then he goes and wins with Kansas City in 2019, and then all of a sudden we're looking back, and you look back and like, oh, man, all those years he made the NFC Championship game, all those runs they made. So with time, you appreciate seasons more, even seasons where you don't go and get a ring. That's why I'm like, this is still part of the run. This is a run to the Super Bowl. It didn't go your way, but you made a Super Bowl. For most franchises, that is a year that they wax poetic about for decades. They talk about getting all the way to the Super Bowl. What a year that was! The guys on the team are considered heroes. They go into the Ring of Honor every time they go into a restaurant. They get meals bought for them. In Kansas City, because of their greatness, that's seen as a disappointment. But eventually, it won't be. And it frankly it shouldn't be.
It's amazing that I mean, we're talking about the success in this run of this dynasty for the Chiefs, and again, the 6 years going to 5 Super Bowls. No team's ever done that. 3 straight Super Bowls going to it while winning the first 2. No team has ever done that. Patriots went to 3 straight, won 2 of 3, but won the first and the third of that 3 straight trip. So no team did what the Chiefs did in this 3-year run.
Well, the Bills went to 4 straight. They may have at least won one.
It's a great point. They probably won at least one. You're right. But like, even saying all of that, I can make a pretty strong case that only 1 year out of the 7 for Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs didn't meet expectations. And that was losing to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game because you just felt like you were better and you were up 18. And it's like, if the expectation every year is to go to the Super Bowl, and his first year starting, the expectation was not to go to the Super Bowl. It was, let's see if they can compete for a Super Bowl. Boom, they can. They lost in overtime to the Patriots. Super Bowl championship. Winning a Super Bowl cannot be the expectation. Getting to a Super Bowl, I think, getting to an AFC Championship game, getting to a Super Bowl could be an expectation if you feel like, you're trying to be a dynasty and catch something. But even if you say, like, getting there is the expectation, only once that Mahomes didn't at least meet expectations, because they win one, lose a Super Bowl, lose the AFC Championship game would be the one out of the 7 years that he's been a starter, which is incredible to talk about, even when he had a rough second half against the Bengals and he had a game where he just didn't feel like he was, that he had the feel in last night's game, that he was just off and wasn't in sync and wasn't in rhythm and couldn't quite get going and never felt comfortable in the game. Like, even with that part of the conversation, this is still a team quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes that maybe only 1 year they did not meet expectation. It's crazy to think about when you're going
and
to
it's
Super
crazy
Bowls.
that the expectations are to
Go to the Super Bowl.
as they were that year.
Yeah, it's like go to the Super Bowl.
But no, I mean, look, there are certainly plenty of things that happened last night where you got to go back and address and try to figure out, like I was talking before, make those chess moves.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still in it, man. It's still this run, and the expectation next year will be to make it to another one.
And we'll see what
on NBC, please. It's finally back on NBC. The only one they missed was on NBC in LA.
Oh no!
Can we make some money for KSHB?
Yeah. Well, you had to bring up the only one they missed was on NBC in LA. Thanks a lot. Boy, if that happens this year, I'll tell you what, man, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. I'm alive. Your fault.
I don't. Let's see. What are they? Are they? Was that their first loss on Fox in the Super Bowl? I can't remember that.
Yeah, they beat the Eagles on Fox. I know that, and the 49ers in 2019. So yeah, that's their first one. It's damned Brady. It's that damn Sasquatch, man.
There were three things, actually, Mick, that I had pointed out are not good signs going into a Chiefs Super Bowl. It is a rookie or first-time punter. If Tom Brady's involved, what was the last one? Such a good point that I forgot it.
It was
if Mick drove there.
Yep,
that's right.
There it is. Stop driving there, Mick. All right.
No, I flew to Tampa and they lost.
Oh yeah, that wasn't one of them.
There were a lot of trends bucked last night. Well, he was 15-0 indoors.
Yeah, indoors. The quarterback to make their first Super Bowl and lose to then win one. The rematches with the coaches. The coach was 4-0 in the Super Bowl rematches that won the first one. These all suck. So whatever. That's a terrible trend that was bucked last night. I don't like that at all. The white jerseys in the last 20 years were 16-4, now 16-5. Stupid. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We get Learn Funniest Best next. learned, the funniest from the weekend, and the best from the weekend. What I learned from the weekend is that the Philadelphia Eagles became the first team ever to do something. And this was really interesting because I didn't realize history was on the line for the first in NFL history, no matter who won. So we know if the Chiefs won, they would have been the first team ever to three-peat. But what we found out is a tweet last night from Peacock says, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles on their second Super Bowl victory and the first ever NFL championship win by a team which began the season with a game available nationally and exclusively on a streaming service.
Wow.
So I found out that this first in NFL history. Tweet from Peacock last night. So congrats to the Philadelphia Eagles, the first one ever to win a Super Bowl after their first game was exclusively on a streaming service.
Way to go, NBC.
Yeah,
Specifically in a couple of years, it'll be on Peacock.
There you go,
The only
Mick.
one on
See?
Peacock.
See, there you go, Mick. You guys got this figured. I learned that last night. This was in your back pocket the whole time. You knew this history on the line no matter what, no matter who won. It's
Isn't
historical.
any game we watch or anything we watch, are we watching history no matter what happens?
No. Nope. Not at all.
Okay.
Nope. Chiefs winning
Did it start on a streaming service?
Chiefs in 2022 did not make history because they just won a Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
it's like, the next year, history, they won back-to-back. This
I thought
year,
it was cool.
chance.
I thought it was cool how the Eagles made history last night, being the 59th collection of players to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but, is that really all that different from 58? You know what I mean? It's sort of like, distinction of that are that minor are really not worth making. You know what I mean? So 57, 58, 59 different collections of guys kind of run together at least. I think 57 and 58 is probably a better collection than 59. 59 seems very fluky.
That tweet was the most baseball tweet of all time.
It
that
was,
the
right?
most, he bats 330 on
No
a
doubt.
Wednesday during the day.
In a
with
leap
only
year.
4 clouds.
A leap year.
Against lefties.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Hi. Sterling's next up. Sterling, what'd you learn?
Don't dance with a mascot when you have a microphone. We were doing a scavenger hunt, and I was doing kid and play with Swoop for the scavenger hunt.
Yeah, makes sense.
The Eagles mascot.
Yeah.
Well, you do that.
As one does.
As one does. And we were going around in a circle because, kid and play, you kind of do the feet thing, and then you kind of dance around.
Right.
Well, I had the microphone with a cord just completely wrapped around Swoop. So I tried taking their mascot down, really tried to just make sure that bird didn't fly. And then you have to unwrap, and it was the most embarrassing moment of my life. There's a video of me trying to unwrap this giant bird mascot as I'm right around a certain level you don't want to be at on a human being. And it was just very uncomfortable. So I learned, don't dance with a mascot with a microphone. Only bad things will happen to you.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I get it. Totally get it. Mick, what'd you learn?
I learned how to pronounce so many different words in New Orleans, like street names and stuff. So I'll try it out, see if you guys figured this one out. You guys are down there, so you might know how to say it. You guys know how to say the street name TCHOUPITOULAS.
Chupalotus.
Chupalotus.
Chapatulas.
What?
Close.
Chapatulas.
Well, let me tell you something about Chapatulas on that Canal Street. Oh, you got to go down on that canal with the Chapatulas.
When you order burn ends, Chapatulas.
Canal over
I also learned a
the
lot about Kendrick Lamar songs.
Oh, really?
And yes, when he started playing that one song, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, he's singing this song," I learned why they were really surprised and excited.
Why were they surprised, Mick?
It was a diss track, I heard, so I looked that up. I learned what a diss track was.
Come on, you know
If
what
I
a
ever
diss
drop an
track
album, I'm doing all diss
was.
tracks.
All diss tracks. Do you typically drop those diss tracks on KSH? I'm pretty excited for this next sound off to be diss tracking. So
Sterling's going to catch 5 diss tracks alone.
Yeah, then I'm going to bounce back. I'll still be standing, Mick. We'll have some beef.
You're not going to sue me like Drake?
Shockingly, no. Well, it depends what you say, Mick.
Does it have to be true?
No.
It has to be true.
No. Nope.
I would like it to be true.
Yep. All right, let's continue with our learned. We'll get into funniest here in a second, but learned. Dylan, what did you learn this weekend?
So a quick one. Friend of the show, Grant Afseth. He is a writer that covers the Dallas Mavericks, and he was reporting on what ESPN was reporting on death threats and police security that was needed for the Mavericks front office personnel following the Luka trade. He actually called Dallas Police Department and spoke to their public information officer, and they had no known threats at this time. So then ESPN's tweet promptly got a community note. So I learned that Grant Afseth could dunk on ESPN personalities.
Okay, there we go. All right, Adam Schefter didn't tweet about there's relief coming for Nico.
Right, yeah, no. Nope.
They are now.
What happened to Schefter, by the way? What's up with that? Did you see the Photoshop picture last night after the game?
Oh, my God, yes.
Wait, what happened?
Oh, you didn't see him Photoshop a picture of.
He showed
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
picture of Saquon Barkley jumping backwards over Patrick Mahomes.
Over a cartooned Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Is it still up?
So how Saquon jumped backwards.
Yeah.
You know, it shows him leaping backwards and Mahomes ducking to go tackle, but it's a
Why?
illustrated
That's
Patrick Mahomes.
Remember, it was okay
They're
for
on
a
the field
team.
so much together.
It was okay
So
for a
stupid.
team to dominate the league when it was located in Boston, really close to, their headquarters. But now that it's in the middle of the country or not on a warmer coast,
Yeah.
Adam and the likes of
Flyover
them,
country.
yeah, they don't really enjoy it.
Cowtown. We need to get rid of this damn Cowtown. They're winning too much. Let's make fun of them.
But what makes it even worse? One, it looks just horrendous. They have Travis Kelce in here too. Why would Barkley be on the same field
Right.
as Mahomes?
It's so stupid.
And
It's dumb.
Kelsey? It's also third down. Just so you know, it's third down.
So dumb.
Make sure you get that in there.
It's so dumb. So even if it's third down, even if you say Mahomes was throwing a Hail Mary or something, right? And Barkley was on defense or something, but it was just it's also
third,
stupid.
yeah.
It's also stupid. All right, funniest. We start with you, Sterling. What was your funniest, sir?
The Wall counting down Giannis. I saw this. I don't know when it was, but it was the Wall in L.A. with the Clippers playing, and they all had numbers because Giannis takes a long time to shoot free throws. They got up to 13. They kind of rushed the last couple, if we're being fair, but they just kept going 1, 2, 3. Anytime Giannis would dribble and just try and count, it was great. Giannis missed them. So shout out to the Wall in L.A. because that is a really funny, cool idea.
Mick, what was the funniest for you?
Funniest for me, so in the car right now with me are Chase Lucas and Mackenzie Nelson, and we've been together all week. We're tired of each other.
Yeah.
We hate each other.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking. We barely
Except you.
fit. Mackenzie's wedged back here between the light kit and the wagon. All right, we have no room.
Sounds safe.
Yeah. And so a couple days ago, we were waiting for our car in valet to be brought over, and
Classy.
I point
Shocker.
to where my room is, and Chase is like, no, your room's over here. I'm like, no, it's over here. So we argue for a few minutes of where my room is. The entire time, Mackenzie, and I would describe the relationship, it's been kind of like my two dads, where we're just taking care of Mackenzie, who's very childish. And so she's trying to get our attention. We're like, nah, whatever. And then he's like, finally, you guys, and she points, and we missed it. Anthony Mackie was getting into his car and driving away. He was right next to us the whole time. The new Captain America.
Yeah.
We missed the new Captain America Falcon because we were arguing over where my room was upstairs.
Who was right, by the way? Who was right?
Me, I was right. I was so right. I got up there and I was like, I took a picture and I still haven't shown Chase, but yeah. I
Great.
was
So,
right.
so way to go, Chase. You cost everybody seeing the new.
Yeah, there's a really good chance Anthony Mackie heard that argument too.
Right, that's
God,
right.
This is
Yes.
why I don't.
Embarrassing.
This is why I don't interact with second-class citizens. These idiots in the media.
He might have thought you guys were Falcons fans if you were wearing
Yeah,
red.
that's a good
Him and
point.
Falcons fans got into it a couple of years ago before one of the games, so maybe that was it.
What's your funniest, Dylan, from the weekend?
So my funniest is a little two-parter here. It was two pictures from two 810 personalities here. One is funny just because Todd Lebo with the Workaholics Clan was amazing to see come across my timeline. This is more funny because it happened to me where Curtis is just hanging out in the office and two Chiefs Hall of Famers, Willie Lanier and Jan Stenerud, walk in and he gets a picture with him. literally 30 minutes after I had left the office. So, yeah. So to check that and see that and just, well, I can't drive back. And, boy, I really like Willie Lanier. He's like one of my favorite Chiefs of all time. So a little funny timing there that I don't even get to meet one of my favorite Chiefs of all time. And if I just would have been here for 30 more minutes, I would have.
That work harder. You know what I mean? I was at Super Bowl Radio Row with a few workaholics too, and taking some picture with Kelvin Gemstone. So I mean, it's fine. All right, my funniest was Jameis Winston was just amazing last week and over the weekend. So Jameis Winston went to have a beignet, and they made him a specific W-shaped beignet, and he had a conversation with said beignet.
Well, when you look at this, oh my God, look at the powder that's coming off that thing. Oh my Lord.
He's going to eat a W.
Powder. Hey, Jameis, I heard you've been eating a lot of me. Yes, I have, W. Beignet, but I heard that it's only one of you. Well, Jameis, please take your time and eat me so you can savor every moment. W. Beignet, I really don't want any heartburn, so I'm just going to make sure that I eat you as fast as I possibly can and drink some water to get rid of all the sugar that you have. Jameis, I am a New Orleans staple. Everyone wakes up to come and eat me. Obviously, no one really comes to eat you. They come to eat beignets because you're the only W beignet that I ever made and got.
Now.
What do you have to say about yourself? I asked for extra crispy, and you're a little soft.
He also started riding, taking people around in those bikes, right? Those bikes with the seats on the back that people pay for them. So here's Jameis Winston with a camera crew following him, just randomly taking people for rides.
I believe I can drive this bike. I think about it every night and day. I just almost ran over a horse today. I believe I can soar. You see me riding through an open door. I believe I can bike. I believe I can bike. I believe I can bike.
So there you go. Jameis Winston was my funniest. All right, best for you, Mick?
The best for us was probably Friday night. We got all of our stuff done, and we went to the Post Malone concert.
Whoa, good for you!
In downtown, that was a lot of fun. We got the kind of some passes for it. We were very close to the stage. I didn't know a whole lot about Posty. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Jelly Roll showed up, and they
nice.
they had all the face tattoos.
Heck yeah!
They were out there singing. Shane Gillis was there.
Oh wow, nice!
And he did not even stand up. He's up there for a couple minutes, just thanking the crowd. I'm like, you can't just do one little bit, one little routine. But we got to see him, and all your workaholics guys were there off to the side.
Yeah, working
in the VIP area. You may call him Kelvin Gemstone. He's always going to be Bumper from Pitch Perfect for me.
Too.
It's Adam.
He was there.
It's Adam.
Yeah, and then I didn't know Post Malone's a really good singer. I learned that, and he's very sexual on stage. He wore tight, really tight jeans.
Right. Okay.
And he was.
Good.
I mean, he was like a.
Glad it worked for you.
Very jeans were very. They showed so much.
Heck yeah, his thighs.
Would shake,
probably calves.
Shake it.
Probably calves too. I bet he works out too.
And so all of that somehow was the best for me.
Dylan, your best?
Best for me was Bill Hoffheimer, I guess.
Take
my word
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yes. He is the ESPN Vice President of PR, and he had an awesome shout out to Adam Teicher before the game. I thought it was cool. And obviously the game didn't go probably as we all wanted it to for Adam in his last game, but I thought that was cool that maybe the biggest Twitter personality for ESPN's PR department was tweeting him out before the game.
Nice.
My best was this was sent to me, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio trying to dunk on the Chiefs, and he looks like an idiot. He says, there's never been a shutout in the Super Bowl. This was during the Super Bowl. There's never been a shutout in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs were last shut out in the 2015 playoffs, 30-0 in a loss to the Texans.
Oh, my God, no way.
Reply, Mike, Chiefs shut out the Texans. Reply, I must have missed the year the Chiefs played the Texans in the Super Bowl. Sorry. Somebody replied to him, he's saying the Chiefs won that playoff game you're referring to, you effing dip bleep. That was my best from the weekend. Sterling, your best?
Yeah, that was great. Flew back with 7 people on my flight. I flew back from New Orleans to Kansas City. It was a big 737-800, not even the 800 There was 7 of us on the flight. Still sat middle.
Sterling Taylor and Ice Spice and Donna Kelsey flying back. Thank you, Mick. Safe travels, brother. One more segment wrapping things up on a Monday. More Zone next. It was after Tampa Bay, and certainly after the Cincinnati Bengals loss. Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls. This has been just an unbelievable run. Incredibly grateful that the run happened and here to see it. I mean, I wanted 1 Super Bowl in my lifetime, and I've experienced the Chiefs playing in 5 in 6 years and winning 3 of them. It's just unbelievable.
Don't cry because the
Dry your eye.
three-peat is over.
That's right.
Smile because it happened.
Almost happened.
Almost happened.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. They'll be back. They'll be back. This ain't the last you're going to see of them. They're still in their run, okay? Got some decisions to make in this offseason to make sure that continues.